Even among friends, good manners are crucial. My mother often emphasized this, especially when it came to money, insisting that everything be done properly. Whether or not it applied to past situations, I never imagined how relevant her advice would become. My name is S. I'm a 30-year-old part-time worker living with my 4-year-old daughter and my husband Bob, who works in an office. We rent an apartment 2 train stops away from my in-laws, who live conveniently close to Bob's workplace. As a result, Bob often has dinner at their place. While it might seem considerate, the reality is that Bob is thoughtless and self-centered. He casually stops by his parents' house after work without informing me, even though I'm at home preparing dinner. I've spoken to him about it many times, but he always makes excuses like, "Mom's making meatloaf and mashed potatoes tonight," and never apologizes. Fortunately, my father-in-law usually calls to ask, "Did Bob let you know he's coming over here?" This heads up at least saves our dinner from going to waste. While my father-in-law is considerate, my mother-in-law is quite the opposite. She often makes snide remarks like, "Bob just prefers my cooking over his wife's." Whenever Bob visits them, she'd call to gloat, "He just feels more at ease at home. Sally, you need to make a home where your husband wants to stay." She looks down on me, asserting her superiority as a woman and a mother. She also has a habit of barging into our apartment whenever she finds the time. Bob can't relax with this kind of cleaning. "And what's this in the fridge?" She'd criticize my cleaning, snoop through our fridge, and even throw out my cooking, saying, "How dare you serve Bob such an awful meal? Any wife who doesn't take care of food is the worst. Everything you cook just goes to waste." When I pointed out that I could have eaten it instead of throwing it away, she'd retort, "You're the one wasting food." She'd turn red with rage and start yelling. My daughter would get scared and start crying, prompting my mother-in-law to hurriedly leave, not wanting to be disliked by her. She's selfish and quick to run away when things get tough. I confided in Bob about his mother's bullying, but he brushed it off with remarks like, "You're just imagining things," or "She doesn't mean any harm." The bright and sociable nature that initially attracted me to him now feels like a distant memory. These days, he's moody and dismissive, even ignoring our daughter when she tries to talk to him. His standing as a father has hit rock bottom. To make matters worse, the education fund we had been diligently saving for our daughter had completely disappeared. A significant sum, $40,000, had been withdrawn. I knew it had to be Bob, as he had access to the family account. When I confronted him about the missing money, he nonchalantly said, "Our daughter doesn't need the money right now. We can save up again when it's necessary." His cavalier attitude snapped something in me. "Are you serious? How could you just spend the money we saved together like that? It's not about needing it right now. We saved it because we don't know when we'll need it. What did you even spend it on?" "I helped out Mom," he replied. "Our money. Most of it comes from what I earned. Got a problem with that?" "I contributed too. I saved by cutting our budget and worked hard to manage that money." "Your contributions are insignificant." Our argument escalated, fortunately without waking our daughter. "That's it, we're getting a divorce. I knew you were careless, but to withdraw our child's savings without a word is unbelievable. Go ahead, like you can survive on a part-time salary." I was momentarily speechless. Seemingly satisfied with silencing me, he sneered, "I'm always ready for a divorce," and went back to his room. Though I clenched my fists in frustration, I refused to just cry myself to sleep. Determined, I began preparing for the divorce. I overheard my wife talking on the phone with Bob this morning. My father-in-law messaged me the following Friday. It seemed my mother-in-law had invited my husband for a special dinner that night. Since Bob hadn't mentioned anything to me, he was likely planning to go without telling me again. Ever since I declared my intention to divorce and was belittled for my part-time job, Bob's attitude toward me had shifted to one of disdain. He'd say things like, "I don't need to care for a dependent like you," while scattering the laundry around and neglecting to clean the room. His nitpicking, "You call this cleaning?" was just like his mother's. I saw the call from my father-in-law as the perfect opportunity to put my plan into action. I timed my visit to coincide with Bob's return from work, only to find that my father-in-law hadn't yet arrived home. Bob and my mother-in-law were visibly surprised to see me, but my mother-in-law sneered, "Oh, knowing we're having sushi for dinner, you decided to drop by and freeload? How despicable. You don't deserve sushi," Bob added, his tone harsh. It was clear they had no intention of letting me inside. Though the detached house had a wooden front door that wasn't very soundproof, Their loud shouting was audible outside. As usual, they were a selfish pair, completely oblivious to those around them. I haven't received any message about coming for sushi. The only thing I was told by your father was that you were visiting your parents' house. Are you being sarcastic because I didn't inform you? Do I need to report every move to a housemaid? It's creepy for a wife to talk to my dad behind my back, he said, seeming almost entranced by his own abusive words while my mother-in-law smirked in the background. I retorted, the one being creepy is you, causing her smile to falter. What did you say? It's disgusting to twist your father's kindness like that. You're just a lousy husband who can't communicate. Can't you see he's only trying to be considerate? My words seemed to strike a nerve. Realizing his lack of communication, Bob bit his lip and fell silent. Then you should have declined and avoided causing trouble for Dad with your brazen behavior, my mother-in-law defended him. But her words were hollow and meaningless. Keep arguing over there. I didn't come here to waste time with you. Let's get to the point. I want a divorce. What? Really? Bob's eyes widened in genuine shock. You think you can manage on a part-time salary? I'm not giving up our granddaughter. You're not fit to raise her. Go apologize to Mom. I calmly explained the situation to the shouting pair. Starting next month, I'll be working full-time again. I'm currently working part-time in medical administration at the same place where I worked full-time before we got married. When I mentioned considering a divorce to my colleagues, they recommended I return to full-time work. The kindergarten my daughter attends is near my workplace, so I can pick her up during my lunch break, and she can stay at the daycare till my shift ends. They even advised me on this. You can't possibly raise her on your own, my mother-in-law insisted. Anticipating you'd say that, I've already arranged to live with my parents. They're taking care of my daughter today. Unlike a certain husband who dismisses his daughter, they shower her with love and attention. What? My mother-in-law turned to Bob, who awkwardly looked away. Don't joke around, that's unacceptable. Her voice trembled with agitation. A father who secretly uses the education fund is harmful, I said firmly. At that moment, the front door opened, and my father-in-law appeared, saying, Sorry for interrupting. Can I hear more about this? It seemed he had been listening at the entrance. You use the education fund? What do you mean, Bob? Dad, it's not what it seems. Mom asked me for help with renovation costs, so I supported her, Bob said. Renovation costs. My father-in-law looked confused and turned to my mother-in-law for clarification. Bob suggested we move in together. It's more cost-effective than continuing to pay rent, and if we're going to live together, renovations are necessary, she explained. That's where the money went. I was overwhelmed by the new information. Moving in together, I haven't heard anything about that. And what about the education fund? Sally, can you clarify? I then explained to my father-in-law about the money Bob had withdrawn and that we were getting a divorce. Then you should just leave. Leave the granddaughter here. I'll take care of her, my mother-in-law insisted, her voice trembling. No, this is a decision made by my husband. I can't go back on a promise made between spouses. Ha! I don't remember agreeing to anything like that, I thought to myself. I pulled out a file from my bag and showed it to them. This is the pledge we made regarding the education fund, especially considering Bob's carelessness. I had documented our agreement just in case. My mother always said to document everything related to money, I explained. Bob's signature is here, my father-in-law observed, sounding impressed. What? Why is this here? Bob asked in a panic, likely having signed without fully understanding the terms. The agreement was straightforward. If the education funds were used for anything other than their intended purpose, it would lead to an immediate divorce. In such a case, custody of any children involved would go to the other parent. If Bob couldn't comply, he would be required to pay twice the amount used, giving me grounds to pursue divorce mediation. Essentially, Bob would lose custody and, if unable to meet his obligations, would owe me $80,000, allowing me to seek mediation for the divorce. If you follow your mother's advice, this will turn into a dispute involving an $80,000 payment. I've gathered ample evidence of both your usual behavior and your mother's treatment of me, so you can imagine who will get custody in mediation. I smiled slightly, and my husband gasped. Huh? My father-in-law looked surprised, let out a heavy sigh, and said to my mother-in-law, For now, return the money Bob gave you. You haven't started the renovations yet, so the money should still be there. Upon hearing this, my husband's face brightened, possibly thinking that returning the education fund might make the divorce impossible. My mother-in-law, facing his hopeful expression, turned pale and shook her head. "It's gone. I've already spent it," came a weak voice, eliciting gasps of surprise from everyone. "What?" My mother-in-law trembled and fell silent. "There was a bag I wanted and some clothes too. I only meant to borrow them, but I couldn't resist," she confessed. I was at a loss for words, but my father-in-law quickly responded, "This is ridiculous. What were you thinking?" But Bob said we could save up again for the granddaughter's education fund, so I thought it would be okay," she defended herself. "What? You knew it was meant for our daughter's education and has still spent it. How can you say you won't hand over our granddaughter? Who's truly despicable here?" "You and Bob are the worst kind of parent and child," I said, my anger boiling over, my voice colder than I intended. My mother-in-law stared at me, stunned. "I'm sorry, but I no longer want to be part of this family." "I agree. They're nothing but toxic to our precious granddaughter." At these words, my mother-in-law broke down in tears. After that, I divorced Bob. Thanks to the evidence of mistreatment and the pledge, the child support and property division went as I had hoped. The education fund, which included a third from my salary, along with alimony, totaled $50,000, which I received. My ex-husband struggled to come up with the money, and my mother-in-law had to sell all her designer goods and jewelry to contribute. The remaining amount was covered by my father-in-law. Bob and his mother tried to blame my father-in-law, saying, "Helping your wife is a husband's job," but he became enraged and severed ties with both of them. My ex-husband approached my mother-in-law about moving in together after he had botched a project at work, leading to a demotion and a reduced salary. They could no longer afford their apartment rent and had to downsize to a smaller place. To raise the necessary funds, they were forced to cancel their life insurance policies. By pooling the money from each policy, they managed to cover the repayment amount. It seemed he was looking for sympathy when he reported the completed payment and recounted his struggles. When he spoke of his difficulties while informing me about the payment, I simply responded with a noncommittal "aha" and let it go. Frustrated, he shouted over the phone, "Don't you have a word of gratitude?" "No, I don't. I have grievances of my own, so how about adding that to the bill and charging you for it?" I suggested, and he fell silent. I then hung up and changed my contact information. That was the last I heard from him. However, my mother-in-law later asked my father-in-law for a reconciliation, but he clearly refused. From what he gathered, their situation was dire. Their spending habits had not improved, and their finances were in disarray. Now, the once close parent-child duo were mired in constant arguments, blaming each other for their troubles. "Ha, your beloved son, isn't he?" my father-in-law said sarcastically. My mother-in-law retorted, "He's nothing but an irritating money pit." Whether dealing with parents, children, or spouses, it's crucial to be clear about financial matters. Reflecting on my mother's teachings, I felt a deep sense of affirmation in her wisdom.
I smoothed out the wrinkles on my silk evening gown and took a deep breath. Tonight's celebration dinner at the country club was supposed to be a happy occasion, marking my husband Robert's retirement after decades of leading Rena Enterprises. Little did I know it would become the stage for one of the most shocking betrayals of my life. As we clinked champagne glasses with the board members and their spouses, Robert cleared his throat. "I have an announcement to make," he declared, his eyes flickering towards a young woman at the other end of the table. My heart sank as I recognized Helen Hadsell, one of the junior marketing executives. The way Robert looked at her made my stomach churn. "Amy and I have decided to get divorced," Robert continued, his voice steady. "I've fallen in love with someone else, and we plan to marry soon." A hush fell over the table as gasps and murmurs erupted. I felt all eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "You coward!" I spat at Robert, my voice trembling with fury. "How dare you blindside me like this?" "I'm sorry, Amy," he said, not sounding sorry at all, "but I've made up my mind. Helen understands me in a way you never could." Helen shifted uncomfortably, her cheeks flushed. I shot her a withering glare, wondering how this naive girl could be so foolish. As the dinner descended into chaos, I excused myself, desperate for air. Out on the terrace, I leaned against the railing, trying to steady my breathing. Anger and humiliation washed over me in waves. Robert had been my whole world for over 31 years. We'd built Reina Enterprises together from the ground up, sacrificing countless nights and weekends. And this was how he repaid me, by casting me aside for someone half my age. I wiped away a tear, my jaw set with determination. If Robert thought I would go down without a fight, he was wrong. Game on, I thought. The gloves were coming off. That night, I couldn't sleep, replaying Robert's betrayal over and over in my mind. How could the man I'd loved and supported for decades do this to me and our family? As the first rays of dawn peeked through the curtains, I knew I couldn't stay in misery any longer. If Robert wanted a fight, then a fight he would get. I marched into the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were puffy from crying, but my resolve had never been stronger. I was Amy Reina, and I would not be the victim here. First order of business was hiring a tough divorce attorney. I had my secretary set up meetings with the city's most ruthless lawyers. Within hours, I was sitting across from Julie Bowen, a fierce litigator known for taking down cheating husbands. I want to bleed him dry, I said bluntly as Julie looked through my financial documents. She raised an eyebrow. Even with your substantial assets, a nasty divorce could deplete your net worth considerably. Money is no object, I said through gritted teeth. That lying snake is going to pay for what he did to me and my family's legacy. A sly smile spread across Julie's face. Then let's make sure we take him for everything he's worth. Over the next few weeks, I followed Julie's advice to the letter, using every resource at my disposal. Quiet instructions were given to the Reina Enterprises accounting department for a full forensic audit under the guise of routine checks. Every bank statement, every money transfer, I wanted them examined closely. Julie also coached me on planting seeds of doubt among the board members, suggesting personal concerns over Robert's ability to properly lead the company given his emotional state. A few whispered comments here, a worried look there, and suddenly the company I had helped build was questioning my husband's leadership. All the while, Robert walked around in a love-struck daze, oblivious to the trap I was setting around him. He thought I would simply walk away. I would be content with whatever crumbs he decided to toss my way in the divorce. The poor fool had no idea what kind of trouble was coming. The forensic audit quickly revealed a web of shady dealings connected to Robert's desperation to impress his young mistress. Inflated expense reports, kickbacks from vendors, even outright theft. He had put Reina Enterprises' financial health at risk to fund his lavish courtship of Helen. I pored over the damning documents late into the night, my anger growing with each uncovered wrongdoing. This was the true depth of Robert's deceit. He was willing to sacrifice our life's work, the company we built from nothing, all for a fling with a girl young enough to be his daughter. The next morning, I hand-delivered the audit findings to the board, making sure to highlight the most serious violations with pointed commentary. Clearly, Robert's judgment has been clouded by his personal indiscretions, I stated, careful to keep my tone measured despite the storm raging inside me. I shudder to think how much further this rot might have spread if left unchecked. One by one, I watched the concern etch itself onto the board members' faces. Even Robert's most ardent supporters couldn't deny the evidence of his mismanagement and potential criminal activity. Robert, for his part, seemed stunned by my revelations. The fool actually had the audacity to pull me aside and try to plead ignorance. "Amy, you have to believe me. I never meant for things to go this far," he blubbered. "I've made some mistakes, sure, but it was all for love." I recoiled from his clammy grasp, disgust written plainly across my face. "For love? You jeopardized everything we built together for some cheap fling. I don't even recognize you anymore." As if summoned, Helen appeared in the doorway, her heavy makeup unable to hide her fragility. Robert's eyes immediately locked onto her, his entire stance changing as if their bond transcended the tawdry reality. "Don't worry, my dear," he cooed. "Once the old ball and chain is out of the way, nothing will keep us apart." The naked cruelty in his voice awakened an icy clarity in me. Forget taking him for everything he was worth. This man deserved to lose it all. I crossed the room and stood squarely between Robert and his prize. "Let me make one thing clear to both of you. I am not going anywhere. This company was my life long before you came along, Helen, and I'll be damned if I let you ruin it. I won't let either of you destroy it with your recklessness." Helen opened her mouth, her panicked eyes flicking to Robert for support, but I cut her off with a sharp gesture. "As for you," I turned my withering gaze onto my soon-to-be ex-husband. "I did not survive decades of your insufferable ego just to be discarded in your twilight years. You want to play in the mud with this girl, be my guest, but I guarantee the only thing waiting for you is regret." Turning on my heel, I left them gaping in my wake, already planning my next move. Let them have their fantasy, for now their world was about to come crashing down. With the audit findings exposing Robert's misdeeds, I knew I had all the leverage for ensuring a favorable divorce settlement. Still, I intended to twist the knife further before going in for the kill. I requested an emergency meeting with Robert, putting on my best act of contriteness when he arrived. "I've had some time to reflect on things," I began, wringing my hands for effect, "and I realize now how terribly I've behaved." Robert's eyes widened in surprise, and I fought back the urge to sneer at his gullibility. "Really? You're finally coming around." "I was just so hurt and angry," I continued, letting my voice quaver with manufactured regret. "But I see now that I can't force you to love me. You found happiness with Helen, and it's not my place to stand in the way of true love." The smug satisfaction oozing from his expression was almost too much to bear. "Well, I'm glad you've come to your senses. This has been difficult enough without your vindictiveness making things worse." I reached across the table and grasped his hand, putting on my best pleading expression. "I only want what's best for you, Robert, which is why you have to end this affair immediately." His brow furrowed in confusion. "What? Why would I do that?" Leaning in, I lowered my voice conspiratorially. "Because I'm afraid Helen has been using you this whole time, taking advantage of your generous nature for her own gain." Robert opened his mouth to protest, but I barreled on with my carefully constructed story. "I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I've discovered evidence that she's been having other affairs. Multiple affairs, Robert. She's been bleeding you dry to fund her indiscretions behind your back." His face cycled through a range of emotions: anger, hurt, disbelief. "No, Helen would never. We love each other." Putting on my most sorrowful expression, I gave his hand a pat. "I'm so sorry, but it's true. The bank records, the money transfers, it's all there in black and white. She's been making a fool of you." Robert's shoulders slumped in defeat for just an instant. I felt a pang of something pity, perhaps, but it quickly passed as I remembered all the pain he had caused me. If it's any consolation, this newfound wisdom has made me realize how deeply I've misjudged you over the years. I lied. Why, if I had a partner who showed half the care and dedication you've displayed, I would consider myself the luckiest woman alive." That seemed to lift Robert's spirits a bit, and he mumbled a thank you. Men were so easy to manipulate when you knew how to handle their fragile egos. As he walked out, I allowed myself a satisfied smile. Between the financial void awaiting him and the carefully planted seeds of doubt about Helen's loyalty, Robert's world was crumbling. Just a few more pushes, and his whole pathetic facade would collapse. With Robert reeling from my revelations about Helen's supposed cheating, it was time for the final blow. I called an emergency board meeting, putting on my most serious face as the members arrived. "I'm afraid I have some deeply troubling news regarding Robert's conduct as CEO," I began once everyone was seated. "It pains me to have to do this, but the evidence leaves me no choice. I nodded to my assistant, who handed out the audit findings. The room was filled with gasps and murmurs as the board members read about the extent of the embezzlement and misappropriation. As you can see, Robert has been systematically looting the company's funds to support an unacceptable personal relationship, I declared, letting the accusation hang in the air. His judgment has been hopelessly compromised to a degree that constitutes gross neglect of his duties. Johnny Depp, a senior board member known for his strong ethics, set down the report with a look of profound disappointment. I had my suspicions given the rumors, but I never imagined the depths of Robert's betrayal. This is a gut punch. Believe me, Johnny, I understand your pain all too well, I replied, putting on my most mournful expression. Which is why, as difficult as it is, I feel we have no choice but to relieve Robert of his duties effective immediately. A chorus of solemn nods rippled through the room. Even those usually loyal to Robert couldn't ignore his huge mistakes. Gritting my teeth, I forced out my next words. It truly breaks my heart to say this, but Robert's personal actions appeared to have sent him into an emotional tailspin, calling into question his ability to lead this company. For the good of Reina Enterprises and our employees, we must act now. I recommend an indefinite leave of absence on medical grounds while he seeks treatment. The board members' reactions told me they had taken the bait. By presenting Robert's departure as a compassionate intervention rather than a straight termination, I had given them all plausible deniability, allowing them to avoid feeling complicit in his downfall. As the meeting adjourned with the board's full endorsement, I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. Everything was falling into place perfectly: the forensic audit, the sowing of doubts, and now this final move. A part of me felt a flicker of sadness at how far my beloved husband had fallen, but he had chosen to throw away the life we built together through his arrogance and weakness. I merely ensured he suffered the full consequences. My reflection was interrupted by the ping of a new email from Julie, my attorney. Pulling up the message, I scanned her concise update and felt a rush of vicious satisfaction. Transfer of assets proceeding as planned. The financial guillotine is primed. Just say the word. I typed a simple reply. Do it. Let the delicious ruination begin. The dominoes began falling into place with ruthless precision. Within days of being forced into a leave of absence, Robert found himself systematically frozen out of Reina Enterprises operations. Emails went unanswered, meetings were rescheduled, and he was essentially a ghost at the company he once ruled over. I could only imagine the sinking feeling in his gut as the power he had taken for granted for decades slipped through his fingers. Still, I knew the worst was yet to come for the arrogant fool. Miss Reina, you have a visitor, my assistant's voice crackled over the intercom. Helen Hadsell is asking to see you. A cruel smile tugged at my lips as I buzzed her in. The girl's arrival was right on schedule. Helen entered looking every bit the rabbit caught in the headlights. Though she tried valiantly to maintain her polished composure, I could see the cracks beneath the surface. What can I do for you, dear? I asked in my most saccharine tone as she took a seat. I trust this isn't about your extracurricular activities with Robert. I would simply hate for word of that unpleasantness to spread further. Her eyes went wide with panic. What are you talking about? Oh, I'm sure it's nothing. I waved a perfectly manicured hand in fake nonchalance. Just that it would be an awful shame if those private investigator reports detailing your numerous other affairs ended up going public. Can you imagine the scandal? Helen paled, and I fought back the urge to laugh at her obvious distress. The phony dossier had worked perfectly. The fake reports I had made were truly works of art. But that's not true, she sputtered. Robert and I, we love each other. It's just us. If you say so, dear, I replied coolly. Though if I were you, I might be more concerned with his mounting legal troubles and the likelihood of financial ruin. That caught her attention as I had intended. Leaning forward, I laid it all out for her in brutal clarity. The fraud charges looming over Robert, the asset freezes, and the inevitable collapse of his net worth once the divorce was finalized. Do you honestly think a man facing prison time and bankruptcy will have any qualms about leaving you high and dry? I asked with mock sympathy. Or that you'll still hold any appeal to him once the thrill of your tawdry affair fades? Helen's face crumpled as the truth sank in. She was nothing more than a disposable plaything to Robert, shiny arm candy to be cast aside when she was no longer convenient. "You're lying," she whispered, but it was clear she didn't believe her own words. Smiling thinly, I pushed the killing blow. "If I were you, I'd get out while you still can. Cut your losses and find yourself a new mark to leech off. There are plenty of rich, desperate fools out there to exploit." A single tear rolled down Helen's cheek as she stared at me stunned. I gave her a few moments to absorb the reality crashing down around her before delivering the final twist of the knife. "Oh, and one more thing. Before you go running back to that pathetic man you've been with," I added with sugary venom, "I'd strongly advise emptying out any of Robert's personal accounts or assets you have access to. You'll need whatever you can get to restart your entrepreneurial activities." For just an instant, Helen's mask slipped, and I saw the ruthless mercenary underneath. That was all the confirmation I needed that my carefully planted mole had succeeded in guiding her toward the path of maximum damage. Nodding to herself, Helen stood and wiped away the crocodile tears before squaring her shoulders in false bravado. "You're going to regret this," she spat out in a trembling voice, utterly devoid of conviction. I simply laughed as she turned on her heel and stormed out. The delusional girl had no idea how correct she was, but not for the reasons she thought. Once this was all over, the only regret would be Robert's. The only regret I had was not destroying them sooner. The end game was finally upon us. Within weeks of Helen's hasty exit, the other shoe dropped with a thud that shook Robert to his core. I took great pleasure in being there as the investigator from our corporate security team laid out the damning evidence. Bank statements, wire transfers, photos, an entire dossier showing how Helen had systematically looted over 7 figures from Robert's personal accounts and investments. She couldn't have," Robert stammered, his face pale with disbelief. "We were going to start a life together." The investigator simply shrugged, his expression neutral. "I'm afraid the money trail doesn't lie, Mr. Reyna. This appears to have been a long-running scheme to bleed you dry." Robert's eyes found mine, pleading for help. "Amy, you have to believe me. I never thought she was capable of something like this." I crossed my arms and looked at him with disdain. "Really, Robert? Because it seems to me that poor judgment and self-delusion have become something of a pattern for you lately." His shoulders sagged under the weight of his situation. It would have been almost pitiable if he weren't such a despicable creature. But I don't understand why. Why would she do this to me after everything I sacrificed? He choked out. I allowed myself a feral smile. "Isn't it obvious? You were nothing more than a means to an end, a vain, gullible fool ripe for the fleecing by someone younger and prettier who knew just which strings to pull." Robert opened his mouth to defend Helen, but I silenced him with a raised hand. "Save your breath and what little dignity you have left. This is just the beginning. The avalanche is coming, and you're going to lose everything." Over the next several days, the full scope of Robert's downfall became clear. Financial penalties and legal fees piled up, draining his assets. Forensic auditors found more dubious transactions and potential tax avoidance schemes, bringing the wrath of the IRS. Meanwhile, the revelations of corporate misconduct I had carefully stoked stripped Robert of every remaining board seat and title. He went from leading a billion-dollar empire to being a shunned pariah in a month, his legacy crumbling to dust. The final blow, however, came from an unexpected direction. The gossip columns and society pages that once praised his storybook marriage to me now turned against him. With the collapse of his non-disclosure agreement as part of the divorce proceedings, the media had a field day exposing his scandalous downfall. I carefully fed tantalizing bits about his affair and wild spending to key media contacts. Soon, stories of poor, used Robert and his gold-digging mistress were splashed across the tabloids in juicy detail. The scandal was too irresistible to ignore, no matter how much money was spent trying to cover it up. In one final insult, Robert's beloved country club terminated his membership in a cloud of humiliation. The old guard closed ranks around him, making him a cautionary tale whispered about over drinks. When Robert inevitably crawled back to me, begging for a chance to restore some fragment of his former life, I denied him with cold finality. "This is the bed you made for yourself, Robert," I said, unmoved by his pleas. "I suggest you learn to sleep in it." As he slumped away, broken and discarded, I felt a new sensation blossom within me, not quite happiness, but a sense of resolution. This chapter of betrayal and trauma was finally closed, allowing me to focus on the future. The battles had been harsh but necessary to ensure my complete independence. Never again would I allow anyone to compromise the destiny I had fought so hard for. I was Amy Reyna, newly in control of my own fate, and the world had better be ready for my brand of leadership. As the dust settled from the battlefield of my divorce, I wasted no time in firmly establishing my authority over Reyna Enterprises. The board meetings that had once been mere formalities were now arenas where I wielded my hard-earned power. Profitability is down over 14% compared to last quarter's projections, I stated firmly, staring down the assembled executives. I want to know why, and I want solutions on my desk within 50 hours. There was a momentary silence as the senior leadership team avoided eye contact, each hoping someone else would speak first. Finally, Daniel, the CFO who had been Robert's loyal supporter for years, cleared his throat. "The shortfalls can likely be attributed to the recent transition and its disruptions," he began carefully, "not to mention the lingering PR headaches from, My eyes narrowed dangerously. "You mean the scandal my husband created with his reckless behavior? The one that jeopardized this entire company's future?" Daniel visibly shrank back, his face flushing. "Well, I didn't mean to imply." "Save it," I cut him off, leaving no room for excuses. I cut him off with a withering glare. "I don't want to hear any more excuses about things beyond our control. We make our own destiny here, and anyone unable to adapt to my leadership should explore other opportunities." The room went silent, the temperature seeming to drop as the executives realized the new power dynamics. This was no longer the Reyna Enterprises of old, where decisions were debated endlessly behind closed doors. There would be no more nods to consensus or democratic hand-wringing. My decisions would be final. Mrs. Reyna, Melissa, the head of operations, ventured after clearing her throat. "If I may be so bold, your decisive vision is a marked change from how we've traditionally operated. I think I speak for everyone when I say an adjustment period will be required before we can realign strategy." A few cautious nods rippled through the table, though most seemed to sense the defiance in Melissa's words. My jaw clenched hard enough to crack walnuts. Slowly rising to my feet, I fixed Melissa with a look that could blister paint. "Let me make one thing clear for you and your colleagues," I said, my voice like razors scraping steel. "I did not survive decades of being gaslit and undermined by that spineless husband of mine, only to face further diminishment from his lackeys." Melissa shrank back in her seat, all bravado evaporating as I walked around the table toward her. I could sense the others watching with a mix of disbelief and morbid fascination. None dared to intervene as the new order asserted itself. "This company's old ways are over," I stated, leaning in until Melissa was forced to maintain eye contact. "Either adjust to my leadership and start pulling your weight, or I'll find those better suited to my vision. Am I making myself clear?" She nodded almost imperceptibly, seeming to have momentarily forgotten how to speak. Straightening up, I turned my gaze to encompass the entire room. I did not fight my way through the depths of hell just to be undermined again. Reina Enterprises answers to me now, and me alone. If that reality is too difficult for any of you to accept, I'd be more than happy to expedite your transition into unemployment. The silence that followed spoke volumes. The machine had a new master, and woe to anyone foolish enough to forget that. As the meeting disbanded, the message was clear: a new era had begun. I allowed myself a tight, predatory smile. This was just the beginning, the first step in reshaping this company in my image. Robert's lack of strength and resolve in his final years, spent chasing youthful indulgences, had led us here. Perhaps if he had shown even a fraction of my determination, this harsh transition could have been avoided. But his failures became my greatest advantage, the forge where my fierce independence was created. I emerged strong, unbreakable, and finally in complete control of my destiny. As I stood in the boardroom, the echoes of my words still hanging in the air, I knew I had just taken the first of many steps to secure my position. Robert's downfall was more than a personal victory. It was a lesson in the ruthlessness required to survive and thrive in a world that had often tried to undermine me. For years, I had been the supportive wife, the silent partner, the one who held everything together while Robert frittered away our success. But those days were over. My transformation was not sudden but forged through countless battles and betrayals. Each lie, each act of deceit had hardened me, shaping me into the formidable leader I had become. Robert's reckless pursuit of pleasure and his subsequent downfall had provided the perfect opportunity to demonstrate my resolve. His weakness was the crucible that had tested and strengthened me, and now I stood unchallenged, ready to lead Reina Enterprises into a new era. From this day forward, I would ensure that my name, Amy Reina, was synonymous with strength, perseverance, and unrelenting ambition. I had not fought my way through betrayal and heartache to let anyone or anything stand in my way now. Every decision I made would reflect my vision and my commitment to transforming this company into a powerhouse. There would be no more room for complacency or weakness. Those who could not keep up would be left behind. In the weeks that followed, I implemented changes that shook the very foundations of Reina Enterprises. The old guard, loyal to Robert's way of doing things, quickly realized that their time was over. I demanded excellence and efficiency, rewarding those who adapted and excelling, while showing no mercy to those who resisted. The transition was not without its challenges, but I met each one head-on, never wavering in my determination. I reached out to new partners, forged new alliances, and introduced innovative strategies that revitalized the company's operations. Every move was calculated, every step deliberates, as I worked to erase the shadow of Robert's mismanagement and establish a legacy of my own. The media, once fixated on the scandal of my marriage's collapse, began to shift their focus to the remarkable turnaround happening at Reina Enterprises. Headlines that once spoke of betrayal and deceit now highlighted my strategic brilliance and unyielding leadership. In the end, Robert's downfall was more than just a personal victory. It was a testament to my strength and vision. It proved that I was more than capable of not only surviving but thriving in the face of adversity. I had taken control of my destiny, and there was no turning back. The world would soon understand that Amy Reina was a force to be reckoned with, a leader who had emerged from the flames of betrayal stronger and more determined than ever. I stood tall, knowing that this was just the beginning. The road ahead was long, but I was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. With every decision, every action, I would cement my place as the rightful leader of Reina Enterprises. The company was now a reflection of my strength and ambition, and I would ensure that it continued to thrive under my guidance. The world had better be ready for the new era of Reina Enterprises, led by none other than Amy Reina. Ever since I ended up in a wheelchair due to an accident 3 years ago, my husband and mother-in-law have become much colder towards me. One night, my husband said something I couldn't believe. "Sorry, but could you please leave this house for a moment?" "What? What do you mean?" I asked, shocked. "I mean exactly what I said. My mother and I talked it over and decided," he replied. "Are you saying you want a divorce?" I asked, trying to understand. "Yes, that's it. I've been thinking about it for a long time now. You can't earn any money, so I don't need you," he said harshly, as if he was squeezing blood from a stone. "I understand. Thanks for everything, and thanks for leaving me with nothing," I said, getting up. I left, knowing it would take them some time to realize the meaning of my words. My name is Linda Gray. After graduating from university, I have been working at my current company for 7 years. "Well then, I'll be heading out. Thanks for your hard work." "Thanks for your hard work too," a colleague replied as I closed my laptop and got up from my seat. I looked at the clock by the window and saw it was already 4 hours past my regular working time. An afternoon meeting had run late, and I had been preparing for a conference and responding to emails, which took longer than I expected. I left the office, got in the elevator, and went down to the first floor. As I walked through the automatic glass doors at the entrance, I saw that the sun had already set. I checked the train schedule on my phone as I left the company gate and headed to the nearest station. On my way, I saw 2 of my husband's colleagues walking in the same direction. I wondered if Jack, my husband, was already home. We had stopped talking about work at home recently, so I had no idea if he was busy. Talking about work at home had been making Jack cranky, so we naturally stopped discussing it. As I rode the train home, I stared out the window, lost in thought, watching the scenery go by. When I was dating Jack, we used to finish work at the same time so we could go home together. But for the past year or 2, our schedules have been completely different. On the train, I noticed a young couple near the door, maybe college students, having a fun conversation about a movie they saw recently. Their happy scene reminded me of my own past, and I had to close my eyes tightly to stop the emotions from overwhelming me. "I'm home," I called out as I opened the front door, took off my shoes, and saw the neatly lined up shoes in the entrance. It seemed everyone else was already home. I heard the living room door open behind me and the sound of slippers coming closer. "Welcome home, Linda. You were late today," my mother-in-law, Jessica, said warmly. "I'm home, mother-in-law. I'll start preparing dinner right away," I replied. "Oh no, you don't have to rush. You're tired from working overtime, aren't you?" she said kindly. "Not really," I said cheerfully. "The afternoon meeting ran late, but things should settle down soon." I walked with Jessica to the living room. After getting married, it was just Jack and me. But last year, when his father got sick and was hospitalized, we moved into his parents' home and have been living as a family of 4 ever since. "Welcome back, Linda. You've had a tough day, haven't you?" My father-in-law, who was reading the newspaper on the living room sofa, greeted me warmly. "I'm back," I replied with a smile. Last year, he had a sudden brain hemorrhage and needed emergency surgery. While his condition was serious for a while, he has fully recovered after his rehabilitation. He is calm and friendly, and I liked talking to him since the first day we met. He used to be the head of the finance department before he retired, and he often gives me useful advice on managing the household budget. When I visited, we finished preparing dinner and gathered around the table as a family. Jessica mentioned that Kelly, who came over for lunch the other day, had a daughter named Jolie who had grown a lot. "Kids grow up faster when they're not yours," I responded. "Kelly is as beautiful as ever, and having a child really makes her look even more graceful," Jessica continued. "I guess so," I replied. "Kelly is Jessica's niece and Jack's cousin. Jessica often seems disappointed that Jack and I don't have children. She's not very happy that I continue to work after our marriage and often hints that she would like us to have a child whenever we meet." Honestly, I've always found it hard to deal with Jessica, especially since we started living together. She tends to bring up the topic of having children, especially on days when I come home late from work. You could have had a child if you had started earlier, Linda. But I suppose it can't be helped because you're busy with work, she said. I nodded along, feeling uncomfortable. I glanced at Jack, who was quietly eating his meal without looking at me. Jack and I were colleagues at the same company and got married in our 3rd year of dating. We were told that it would be best if I became a housewife if we had a child, but we have both continued working since our marriage and haven't had any children. Both of us have wanted a child and tried everything from herbal medicine to medical tests, but nothing has worked. Despite a sense of loneliness, we decided to keep living as a couple and focus on our work. However, I started to feel a distance growing between Jack and me. We got married out of love and promised to make each other happy, but our relationship has gradually become cold. I think it started when Jack began having trouble at work. He didn't tell me anything, but I heard from a senior colleague in his department that Jack was struggling because he couldn't keep up with his peers. Jack is a gentle person who doesn't handle pressure well and tends to push himself too hard. I knew without him saying anything that he was feeling anxious and frustrated about the situation. But whenever I tried to offer him support, he would refuse to talk about his worries, insisting that he was fine and that I shouldn't worry. So he continued to keep his feelings to himself. I couldn't push him to open up, and I felt helpless that I couldn't be there for him. Even so, on our days off, we would make an effort to travel together or spend a relaxing day at home, enjoying our time together as a couple. When I felt drained from our unsuccessful attempts to have a baby, Jack was always there, quietly supporting me. That's why, even if I couldn't solve Jack's problems directly, I wanted to be by his side, providing comfort and peace. The turning point came when I got a promotion at work. I was recognized for my achievements on the projects I worked on and was one of the fastest among my peers to get promoted. That's amazing, congratulations, Linda, Jack had said. I can't forget the look on his face when he congratulated me. I was so touched that I could only manage a simple thank you. As my work got busier, the distance between Jack and me seemed to grow. We spent less time together, our conversations became fewer, and when my income surpassed Jack's, we hardly even made eye contact anymore. I would watch Jack as he finished his meal in silence and then left the table without a word. I can't help but wonder if I hadn't been afraid of being pushed away and had tried harder to support him, would we have a different relationship now? When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was the bright white light of a fluorescent bulb. After blinking a few times, I looked around and realized I was lying in a hospital bed. I looked down and saw an IV in my arm, and both of my legs were wrapped in layers of bandages and casts. The moment I tried to move, an intense pain shot through my body. Tears welled up in my eyes from the sheer pain. My body felt as heavy as lead, and it seemed impossible to move. What on earth had happened? I tried to recall my memories leading up to that moment. I remembered going to work as usual, finishing a meeting and report, and leaving work on time for the first time in a while. After leaving the office, I was heading towards the station, which was busier than usual because of rush hour. Then I heard the screeching sound of sudden brakes from behind me. I turned around and felt a violent shock. I realized I'd been hit by a car. Fear and pain spread through my body. I worried about the condition of my body now. I heard footsteps approaching, and suddenly the curtain around my bed was opened. "Oh, Mrs. Gray, you're awake, but you shouldn't try to get up yet," said a young female nurse in a rushed tone. "I understand you're confused, but your doctor will explain everything shortly. Please stay calm for now." Okay," I replied, and the nurse left in a hurry. A few minutes later, the doctor arrived and explained what happened. Apparently, a truck driven by a sleepy driver crashed onto the sidewalk, and I was hit from behind. I had been rushed to the hospital immediately after the accident, and it had been about half a day since the surgery. "Excuse me, but have you contacted my family?" I asked. "Yes, we have informed your husband and his parents about the accident and that the surgery went well. However, they seem to be out somewhere and can't come right away," the doctor said. "I see, thank you," I replied. Jack was away on a business trip, and his parents had been on an overseas vacation since last week. From the doctor's tone, I could imagine their reaction to the news. Even though they were out, it didn't sound like they responded as you would expect when being told a loved one has been in an accident. I laughed bitterly, thinking about Jack's reaction. It didn't seem like he would be worried about me. The doctor continued to explain that while there were no life-threatening injuries, the damage to both of my legs was severe. They said the chances of walking again were not good. As I listened, it felt surreal, like they were talking about someone else, not my own body. Jack visited the hospital 4 days after the accident. It was surprising to see his pained expression when he saw me, covered in injuries, lying in the hospital bed. "Sorry," he said, looking genuinely distressed. "I'm late." "It's fine, don't worry about it," I replied. "I'm sorry for interrupting your business trip." It had been a while since we last talked, and the atmosphere was awkward. Our conversation stalled, and we both avoided eye contact. Jack then excused himself to talk to the doctor, leaving the room. I couldn't bring myself to call out to him and just watched him leave. It's been 2.5 years since the accident. My legs are still disabled from the accident, and I've been confined to a wheelchair. Since the accident happened while I was leaving work, I managed to stay with the company for a while, but it became too hard to continue, so I resigned about 5 months ago. Since then, I've been spending my time at home, but a few things have been bothering me. One thing is Jessica's attitude towards me. It's gotten much harsher than before. "Linda, do you have a moment?" "Yes, of course." "I'm about to head out, but could you fold the laundry for me? It's just folding, so you can do it even if you can't move your legs, right?" "Yes, please be careful on your way out." "Well then, please get it done." Ever since I started staying at home, I've been getting more and more snide comments from Jessica. She seems unhappy that her daughter-in-law is at home all day and not working. Now, every time we meet, her requests come with a side of sarcasm. I sighed as I folded the laundry. The other thing that's been on my mind is Jack's job. According to a former colleague, Jack seems to be struggling at work more than ever. He's being outperformed by younger colleagues and subordinates who joined after him. He seems to be viewed as a burden by those around him. He used to keep to himself after coming home from work, but lately he's been taking out his frustrations on me more often. Must be nice, Linda. You don't have to worry about work relationships anymore, and you get to eat without having to work. I heard from Mom that you've been lazing around all day doing nothing. I wish I could have that lifestyle just once. I no longer saw any trace of the kind Jack I once knew. His sarcastic remarks left me feeling sad for the man he had become. One night, he said, "I hate to ask this, but could you please leave this house?" I was at a loss for words, unable to understand the meaning of his abrupt statement. "What? What do you mean?" "I mean exactly what I said. My mom and I have talked it over and decided." I turned to look at Jessica, who was sitting next to Jack. "Linda, ever since you quit your job, you haven't contributed to the living expenses or helped around the house. You've just been staying at home all the time. To be blunt, it's a nuisance for you to stay here any longer," she said. I don't. Don't you think it's rude to live off others without making any contribution to their household?" Jessica continued, a triumphant look in her eyes. Jack remained silent, avoiding eye contact with me. "Jack has a tough job too. Just because you're married, he doesn't have to support you anymore," she added. I looked at Jack, who was staring down. "Jack is asking me to leave. Is this your way of saying you want a divorce?" "Yeah, that's it. I've been thinking about it for a long time," he replied. So after all this time, you have no feelings left for me. Why would there be? Of course not, Jack said, his words spilling out like a flood. Do you know how miserable I feel every time I see your face? You must have looked down on me, thinking you were better than me every day. It felt like the threads of our relationship were unraveling one by one. I tolerated you because you were contributing to the household expenses, but things have changed now. You're just someone who neither works nor has money, he said, clenching his fist, his words cutting like a knife. I don't need you now that you can't earn money. The last thread snapped. I understand, I said. For the first time, Jack looked at me. But I have a condition. All the divorce procedures will be handled through a lawyer. If you agree to that, I will pack my things and leave within the week. Sure, that's fine, right, Jack? Jessica said. Jack nodded silently. Well then, that's how it is, Jack, I said, jolting him out of his silence. Thank you for everything up until now, and thank you for leaving me with nothing, I said before walking out. A few days had passed since I left the house. When I checked my phone, I saw a call from Jack. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before picking up. Yes. Linda, I'm sorry. Could you please come back? He said. What's this all about all of a sudden? I asked, surprised by his change of heart. I heard from my dad that even after you quit your job, you've been covering our living expenses. You've been investing since you were working, haven't you? And now you're able to cover living expenses with the money you make from dividends, Jack said, his voice tinged with regret. Yes, that's right. So what? I responded, not sure where he was going with this. I left the household budget to you and my dad, so I didn't know anything about our finances. I thought we were living off my income, but now I realize we were mostly living off yours. I really regret saying such terrible things. I'm sorry, Jack continued, his tone softer, almost pleading. After we got married, we merged our finances, and I began investing my own money. My father-in-law encouraged me to invest, and he was the only one I talked to about financial management and investments. Jack never showed any interest in our finances, leaving it all to his dad and me. So, what am I supposed to do if I come back? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Well, my dad says that with my income alone, it's impossible to maintain the same standard of living we've had. Besides, I'm not confident that I can keep my current job for much longer. I'm struggling at work, and I don't know how much longer I can hold on, Jack admitted, his voice breaking. So what you're saying is you want me to come back so we can live comfortably? I asked, my anger rising. You really have some nerve. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and I could hear Jack breathing heavily, trying to find the right words. The reason I never said anything before is because, even though my feelings have changed, I believed that deep down you still cared about me. But you're not the Jack I once loved anymore, I said, my voice trembling with emotion. That's not true, Jack said quickly, his voice full of desperation. I still care about you. I've just been going through a lot, and I've made mistakes. I know I've hurt you, but I want to make things right. Please come back. I sighed, feeling the weight of the years and the pain we had both endured. Jack, it's not that simple. You've hurt me deeply, and it's not just about the money. It's about how you've treated me, how you've taken me for granted. You've become someone I don't recognize anymore. I know, and I'm truly sorry. I've been a fool, and I've let my pride get in the way. I miss you, and I miss us. I want to make things right, but I need you to help me. Please, Linda, come back, Jack pleaded. I need time to think, I said, feeling the tears well up in my eyes. You can't just expect me to come back and pretend everything is okay. We need to talk about this, really talk, and figure out if we can find a way forward together. Okay, I understand, Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. Take all the time you need. Just know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. As I hung up the phone, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to believe Jack, to believe that he could change and that we could find a way to rebuild our life together. But another part of me was deeply hurt and uncertain if I could ever trust him again. I knew that whatever decision I made, it wouldn't be easy, and it would take a lot of time and effort to heal the wounds that had been inflicted over the years. "I still love you, Linda," Jack said, his voice full of desperation. "There's no need for you to say anything more," I replied firmly. "All my feelings for you have vanished. The last time we talked, I made it clear that whatever happens to you and your family from now on, I just don't care. Thank you for leaving me with no trust, no memories, nothing at all," I continued, my voice cold and unyielding. "Wait, Linda, please forgive me," Jack pleaded, his voice breaking. "I'll handle all the divorce arrangements through my lawyer. Don't ever contact me again," I said, my tone final. I hung up the phone and immediately blocked his number, cutting off any further communication. After that, the divorce process moved quickly, and I made a clean break from Jack. The only person I still kept in touch with was my father-in-law. One day, my phone rang. It was my father-in-law. "So have you had any trouble living alone since you split up with Jack?" he asked kindly. "No, not particularly," I replied, feeling a bit relieved to talk to someone who genuinely cared about my well-being. "That's good to hear. I'm sorry for the trouble we caused you, Linda." When I heard what happened from Jack and my wife, I was so angry that I couldn't help but shout. "I shouldn't have ignored the terrible way my wife and son treated you for so long. I'm truly sorry that I didn't do more to help," he said, his voice filled with regret. "It's okay, sir. Please don't worry about it," I replied, trying to ease his guilt. "Actually, I caused some trouble too. After I left, things didn't go well at the house. Even without my income, Jack and Jessica kept living extravagantly without cutting back on their lifestyle. They ended up pawning their belongings and even went into debt. My father-in-law, frustrated with their irresponsible behavior, recently divorced his wife. I see this as a good chance to rethink my life," I continued. "I can live just fine with my current lifestyle, and I want to take on new challenges. I feel optimistic about the future, even though things have been tough." "That's the spirit," my father-in-law said, a hint of pride in his voice. "You've always been strong, Linda. I have no doubt that you'll come out of this even stronger." After hanging up, I reflected on how much my life had changed. I had always been the one to keep our household running smoothly, managing our finances and making sure everything was in order. After we got married and combined our finances, I began investing my own money with the encouragement and guidance of my father-in-law. Jack had never taken an interest in our finances, leaving everything to his father and me. Since the divorce, I've had to make some adjustments, but overall, I've managed well. I've learned to live within my means, cutting back on unnecessary expenses and focusing on what truly matters. I've also started taking on new challenges, exploring new hobbies, and reconnecting with old friends. It hasn't been easy, but I've found a sense of independence and self-reliance that I hadn't realized I was missing. Reflecting on my relationship with Jack, I couldn't help but feel a mix of sadness and relief. We had once been so in love, but over time, our relationship had deteriorated. The pressure from his job, the expectations from his family, and our struggles to have a child had all taken their toll. Jack had changed, becoming someone I no longer recognized. His coldness and lack of support had driven a wedge between us, and no matter how much I tried to reach out to him, he had pushed me away. When I finally made the decision to leave, it was the hardest thing I had ever done. But now, looking back, I realize it was also the best decision for both of us. Jack needed to face his own issues, and I needed to find my own path. The divorce proceedings were straightforward, thanks to the help of my lawyer and the support of my father-in-law. He had always been kind to me, treating me with respect and offering his wisdom and advice on financial matters. Even after the divorce, he remained a source of support, checking in on me regularly and offering his assistance whenever I needed it. I learned that after I left, the household fell into chaos. Without my financial support and management, Jack and Jessica continued to spend recklessly, refusing to cut back on their lavish lifestyle. They eventually had to pawn their belongings and even went into debt. My father-in-law, frustrated with their irresponsibility and fed up with the constant stress, decided to divorce Jessica. Now, I see this as a chance to reassess my life and set new goals. I've been focusing on my own happiness and well-being, taking things one day at a time. I found new strength within myself and a renewed sense of purpose. I've also started to explore new opportunities, whether it's a new hobby or a potential career change. Life may not have turned out the way I expected, but I'm determined to make the most of it. As I laughed cheerfully with my father-in-law over the phone, I felt a sense of relief and hope. The future is uncertain, but I'm ready to face it with a positive attitude and an open heart. I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned and the support I've received, and I'm excited to see where this new chapter of my life will take me. My daughter is joining the company, so I need you to resign. Today is your last day. Those were the unexpected words I heard from the president on the morning of the 15th. I was completely taken aback, unable to find the words to respond. The 15th was the day we usually paid our suppliers, and while some payments were done through bank transfers for our long-term suppliers, I'd also made direct payments and personally visited some of them as a courtesy. You look like you can leave right away. I'll give you the day off, just for you, so you should leave quickly, the president added. He practically pushed me out of the office, and the door closed with a sharp snap right in front of me. I stood there in shock, not knowing where to begin or how to argue my case. My name is Julie. I joined this family-owned paving company straight out of high school and have worked here as a clerical worker for 11 years until just now. The company had around 35 employees, and when the current chairman was still the president, the workplace atmosphere was wonderful. It was a comfortable place to work. The chairman, now retired, used to closely collaborate with the younger employees, and his wife, Olivia, would come in daily to assist with various tasks until he was hospitalized. Their daughter, Maria, was skilled in both fieldwork and office tasks, and her husband was the site manager, respected and trusted by all the on-site employees. Even though they were the founding family, they never acted superior or looked down on us employees. It would have been wonderful if this enjoyable and smooth-running company life had continued, but reality had other plans. Unfortunately, at the end of last year, the chairman was diagnosed with cancer during the company's group medical examination. Due to his health condition, he decided to retire as president and appointed Maria's husband, the site manager, as the next president. Both the employees and I fully supported this decision. We all agreed that the chairman should focus on his treatment, and we wished him a long and healthy life. However, things took an unexpected turn when the chairman's eldest son, Adam, suddenly showed up with his family. I had no idea where he had heard the news, but it turns out the chairman had another child besides Maria. This other child was Adam, who had been disowned about 27 years ago, and I had never known anything about it. According to the senior employees, Adam had been quite a troublemaker in his youth. He frequently got into trouble with the police, and every time something happened, the chairman and his wife, Olivia, would have to go and apologize for his behavior. After dropping out of high school, Adam got involved in multi-level marketing schemes and fraudulent activities, which eventually led the chairman to make the difficult decision to disown him. Despite being estranged from the family for a long time, Adam suddenly reappeared one day, pleading with his father, "Dad, I've realized my mistakes. Please forgive me." I was stunned to witness this unfold in our small company, where the president's office and the clerical room were essentially the same space. Adam expressed a strong desire to reconcile with his father and to work in the company, but given his troubled past, it was hard for anyone to believe in his sincerity. The chairman, deeply moved by Adam's plea, apologized to everyone in the company and asked, I know about Adam's past, but I ask you to give him another chance." Maria and the senior employees, who were well aware of Adam's history of trouble, couldn't fully embrace the idea, but they also couldn't turn down the chairman's heartfelt request. So Adam and his family moved into the annex of the chairman's house. Adam became an employee of the company, and his wife took on household duties. I only saw their daughter once when she visited the company. She seemed to be a college student. The chairman truly believed that Adam had changed for the better after facing many hardships in life. Olivia was overjoyed to have her son back and often talked about how they would rebuild the company together as a family. However, problems soon began to surface. Adam insisted, "I'm the eldest son, so I should be the next president," which created tension between him, Maria, and the site manager. Although Adam tried to appear hardworking in front of the chairman, the truth was that he did very little. He frequently made demeaning remarks like, "Physical labor is for the workers," and "You're all just worker ants. Work silently." Naturally, his attitude made him very unpopular among the employees. Some of the younger workers even went directly to the chairman, saying, "I can't work under these conditions." Despite this, both the chairman and Olivia pleaded with everyone, saying, "We will talk to Adam about this. Please try to see the bigger picture." Unfortunately, due to stress or other reasons, the chairman's cancer suddenly worsened, and he was hospitalized 5 months ago. During this time, Adam made a bold declaration. "I am the president," Adam declared, despite many employees advising the chairman and Olivia to stick with their original plan of appointing the site manager as president. However, in the end, they chose Adam, their biological son, over their daughter's husband. This decision stirred up quite a bit of grumbling among the employees, who felt the chairman and Olivia were either blinded by parental love or losing their sharp judgment as they aged. The once harmonious atmosphere of the company became tense and uncomfortable. Tensions were high, and it was clear that the decision had caused a rift. Maria and the site manager, her husband, began working behind the scenes to keep the company running smoothly. This left me handling all the administrative tasks alone, a job that was once shared among Olivia, Maria, and me. Now, I often found myself working overtime, sometimes leaving so late that the date had already changed by the time I got home. Meanwhile, Adam seemed to have no interest in the responsibilities of running the company. He treated administrative duties as if they were effortless, spending his days at hostess bars, betting on horses, or gambling. My relationship with Adam, the new president, took a serious downturn over an issue with expenses. Adam had been using the company's credit card for personal dining and entertainment, and while I had overlooked it to some extent, this time the expense crossed a line. With apprehension, I handed the receipt back to him. "I can't approve this expense," I told him. "What? Why not?" he demanded. "This is for your wife's corrective underwear. It's not related to business, so it can't be expensed," I explained, trying to remain calm. Adam's face flushed with anger. "Don't challenge me. She's the president's wife. It's natural for her to dress well. This is a valid expense," he insisted. "No, that's not how it works. Your wife's underwear can't be considered a business expense," I stammered, struggling to comprehend how the president could justify a $7,000 expense for his wife's corrective underwear. His next suggestion left me even more bewildered. "Then let's turn selling corrective underwear into our new business venture. We'll categorize it as inventory, so it counts as an expense," Adam said, seeming pleased with his idea. I was at a loss for words. "We're a paving company," I managed to say, trying to make him see reason. "So what? We can threaten clients that if they don't buy from us, we'll cancel their contracts. Everyone will buy It's easy money. $31,000 for $7,000 worth of product." Adam chuckled loudly, but I felt horrified. "That's absolutely unacceptable. It will damage our credibility," I snapped at him in anger. From that moment on, I became the target of the president's disdain. Day after day, I endured constant berating from him. The situation became so difficult that I wasn't sure how much longer I could handle it. I thought about quitting many times, but I kept going. My loyalty to the chairman, who had always supported me, and my concern for the team, who would struggle if I left, were strong reasons to stay. The truth was, I couldn't afford to lose my job suddenly either. So I decided to tough it out until the right moment came for me to move on. But then, out of nowhere, I was fired. If I quit abruptly now, it will cause problems for our clients, I thought to myself. Taking a deep breath, I gathered all my courage and confronted the president. I can't do this. I can't just leave without proper notice and a handover. Even your daughter wouldn't be able to handle the workload right away. Besides, today is the day we need to handle payments, I said in one breath, fully expecting the president to explode in anger. As expected, the president's face turned red with rage. Shut up. I told you to resign because my daughter is joining the company. Today is your last day. After the payment, let them wait until they come to collect it. There's no need to pay them up front, he barked. Excuse me, isn't it normal to pay for something once you buy it? I was shocked and tried to explain it to him calmly, as if I were talking to a child. But the president responded with something so unreasonable that I couldn't believe he was serious. If that's the case, just threaten to switch suppliers. Tell them we won't make the payment this time, so they should give it to us for free. What? That's not something we can do, is it? I was so stunned that I couldn't find the right words to respond. You're completely useless. My daughter has a college degree. She can handle office work easily. As family, she won't question my expenses like you do. You're all talk and no action. We don't need someone like you in our company. Leave now, the president sneered. It was clear that he intended for his daughter to take over the accounting, so he could justify personal expenses as business expenses. Oh, is that so? Just remember, I won't regret this, I replied. I realized that words were useless at this point, and my patience had worn thin. I quickly gathered my belongings and left the company. Feeling sorry for our clients, I called Maria. Even though I knew Olivia and Maria were busy taking care of the chairman, this was urgent. I explained everything to her and trusted Maria to handle the situation. Once I left the company, I suddenly found myself with nothing to do. Being fired without notice clearly violated labor standards laws. I decided to report this situation to the Labor Standards Office. I knew the company could get into serious trouble because we were part of the middle company payment system. This system supports small and medium-sized businesses that can't always afford to pay severance on their own. By using this system, I could claim my severance pay and 1 month's salary. There wasn't a rush, though, because I had up to 6 years from my retirement date to apply, and the Labor Standards Office had a 4-year statute of limitations. With my usual professional habits, I started planning out the steps I needed to take and the timeline for my retirement. I decided that I could take it easy for at least a week. Lately, I had been working overtime and weekends without a break, leaving no time for myself. There were many places I wanted to visit once I had some time to relax, so I chose to go on a day trip to the beach for a refreshing break. After enjoying a peaceful day at the beach, I checked my phone, which I had left in a locker. I found several missed calls, emails, and voicemails waiting for me. One email from Maria caught my attention. It said, "The payment process went smoothly. Everything is in order." I felt a sense of relief, despite how abruptly the president had dismissed me. Still, I couldn't shake the guilt I felt for leaving my job in anger. Next, I listened to the voicemail from the company. It was the president's panicked voice saying, "Hey, what's going on? They're saying I'm not the real president. Did you know about this? Explain yourself." I couldn't help but chuckle at his sudden realization. After that, I continued to check my emails and voicemails, and among them was a message from the chairman, asking me to come to the hospital. That evening, I promptly headed to the hospital. When I arrived, I found Olivia and the president already there in the room with the chairman. As soon as the chairman saw me, he greeted me from his bed, saying, "Julie, I'm truly sorry for my foolish son." Before I could respond, Adam, the president, arrogantly shouted, "Hey, what's going on? I'm not the official president. Explain yourself." The chairman quickly silenced him with a stern command, "Quiet down." It turned out that right after I had called Maria, she immediately informed the chairman and Olivia about everything that had happened. Upon receiving the news, the chairman had contacted Adam, who had been acting as president, and asked him directly, "Do you really not know anything? So what's the truth?" I calmly explained to Adam, the president, who was still shouting in confusion, "Adam, you didn't have any legal authority. Your role as president was just a title." It might seem confusing, but in business terms, being the president is a position within the company that doesn't hold legal standing like a representative director does. The representative director is the person who is legally responsible for the company's actions externally. It's a more formal role that requires specific legal procedures to change. I continued, while the title of president can be changed informally within the company, changing the representative director involves complex legal processes. That's why your position didn't carry the legal weight you thought it did. 5 months ago, when Adam was appointed as president, there was strong opposition from Maria, the site manager, and some veteran employees. That's when I proposed a strategy. Adam would be a figurehead president, while the chairman remained the legally responsible representative director. As someone familiar with company procedures and laws, I knew how complicated these things could get. Under my plan, if Adam showed genuine dedication and won over the employees, we would then start the legal process to formalize his presidency. However, if Adam failed to prove himself fit for the role, our backup plan was to either remove him or even consider closing the company, while Maria and the site manager prepared to start a new venture. Maria doubted Adam's ability to change, but the chairman and Olivia continued to believe in him until he unfairly dismissed me. That seemed to wake them up to his shortcomings. If you want to be a leader, you need to learn to take care of your employees. I've told you this many times, the chairman emphasized. Adam retorted, "It's not a big deal, right? Can't we just handle the procedures now?" "No, it's not possible," the chairman explained. "Our company offers stocks to employees who want them, and many of them own shares. Julie owns 20%, making her a major shareholder. We can't ignore her views, and other shareholders won't support you either." As the reality of the situation started to sink in, Adam's face paled. "What? I don't have any shares. None?" he stammered. "I plan to pass on my shares to you once you proved yourself as president. But I'm deeply disappointed in you. Were you only interested in my wealth, thinking I didn't have much time left?" the chairman said, slumping in despair. Olivia remained silent, visibly upset. Defiantly, Adam responded, "Well, I'm the eldest son. What's wrong with taking what's rightfully mine? The company belongs to me." "I can't forgive you anymore," I said firmly. The chairman bears full responsibility as the representative director of this company. Moreover, as a shareholder, I have the right to call for a shareholders' meeting and propose your removal. I made my stance clear. The president's face drained of color as he realized the seriousness of the situation. "You mean I could be fired?" he stammered. "Adam, you were just a clerk," I replied. "Julie is right. At this point, no one will support you," Olivia interjected, her voice full of concern. She then turned to me, "Julie, I owe you a sincere apology. I regret the trouble caused because of my love for my son. Please tell me what you'd like to do." I confronted the president directly. "Mr. President, I no longer wish to work under your leadership, so I am resigning immediately. However, I expect to receive my severance pay along with 1 month's salary, including unpaid overtime and holiday pay. As a shareholder, I will also take action through the Labor Standards Office to remove anyone who is harmful to the company. As I spoke calmly, I noticed the president's complexion shift from pale to completely white. I continued, informing them that Maria had been actively visiting clients and successfully promoting our new company. Many clients had already decided to switch from our current company to the new one, and most of our employees were planning to follow suit. "That's impossible. I'll sue you," the president threatened, his voice cracking with desperation. But before he could say anything more, the chairman intervened firmly, cutting him off. "I am the representative director. You have no such authority," the chairman declared firmly. The president collapsed to his knees, and I felt a mix of emotions: regret, disappointment, and a strange sense of closure. "Mr. President, it's unfortunate that things had to end this way. If you had changed your approach when you returned, things might have turned out differently. There were plenty of opportunities for understanding if you had made an effort to learn and adapt," I said, trying to convey the missed chances. Ultimately, it was the president who squandered those opportunities, a classic case of reaping what you sow. In the aftermath, the chairman made the difficult decision to shut down the company, leaving Adam unemployed. The president's wife tried to sell the corrective underwear, but her efforts didn't succeed. They faced legal issues due to their aggressive sales tactics and were eventually arrested for their involvement in a pyramid scheme. When Maria returned to her parents' home, she found boxes of unsold underwear left behind. As for their daughter, she found employment elsewhere, although I'm not sure where exactly. As for me, I'm now happily working at the new company started by Maria and the site manager. I cherish the relationships I've built with others and strive to live authentically each day. Life has moved on, and so have I, with a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment. Welcome, my maid. Even though she knows I'm here to meet for a marriage proposal, this is the first thing she says. I let out a confused sound, thinking I must have heard wrong. My future mother-in-law, Olivia, looks at me with a mean smile and says, "Oh, you're not the maid. You have such a poor-looking face." The fiancé I thought was on my side, Scott, betrayed me in the worst way. He glanced at my face and burst out laughing. "You're right, she does have a poor-looking face. I'd love to see her parents." "Really? I wonder if your parents would faint from shock at seeing a house as wealthy as ours," Olivia added. Olivia and Scott kept looking down on me, even making fun of my parents. I couldn't take it anymore and sent a message to my father while they weren't looking. He replied quickly, saying he would come right away. "I'm going to get some fresh air," I said, unable to bear Scott's insults any longer. "Don't run away." Scott's rude laughter echoed as I left to wait for my father's arrival. 15 minutes later, I introduced my father, Richard, to Scott and his mother. "Here's the slave's father," Scott said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were not smiling. "Wait, father, mother," Olivia said, her face going pale when she recognized my father. "I am Kelly, turning 31 this year, working in a small company. I've lived my life trying not to stand out. That's why I usually wear just foundation and prefer navy or black clothes. I don't wear contacts and instead have thick glasses because of my high prescription. The reason for being so low-key is that my father had a high-profile job, and it influenced me since childhood. My father is an actor. He was quite popular back in the day, often surrounded by women when walking through town. Though he usually played supporting roles, he still appears on TV quite often and is moderately well-known. Middle school was tough because of my father. Classmates would ask for his autograph, and their parents wanted to meet him. Since I refused all these requests, I was often criticized. I must have seemed unfair to them. I even faced bullying from jealous classmates. I didn't want to trouble my dear father, and I also hated the idea of being seen as showing off. Struggling with these thoughts, I dressed simply and went to a high school where no one knew me. Luckily, I had a common last name, so I could live normally from then on. Because of my plain appearance, men didn't approach me, allowing me to enjoy a carefree student life. I love talking about comics with my female friends, and those times felt like the happiest moments for me. I met my fiancé, Scott, after I started working. Scott worked for the company that leased the copy machines to the place where I worked. I didn't talk to him much at first. Scott would come to check on the copy machine, and we would exchange a few words during his visits. Our relationship changed a lot one day when the copy machine broke. I was busy preparing materials for a meeting the next day, and when the machine stopped working, I panicked. I wouldn't be able to get the materials ready without it, so I called Scott. Scott came quickly and checked the copy machine. "Can it be fixed?" I asked him, worried. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." I fell in love with Scott's smile right then. Unfortunately, the copy machine couldn't be fixed, but Scott arranged for a replacement. We managed to prepare the materials in time for the meeting. Having fallen for Scott, I made an effort to get closer to him. I asked for his contact information and called him often. Then I confessed my feelings to Scott, and we started dating. Scott was always very kind. He was always considerate, and I had never seen him angry. I thought he would continue to be kind even after knowing about my father. So, after dating for 2 months, I boldly proposed to Scott, and he happily accepted. I remember being very happy. However, there was one thing that worried me: my appearance. I had always worn thick glasses, even on dates, and I dressed plainly. It was a habit that was hard to break. The real me looked just like my father, with distinct features because of my appearance. In middle school, other girls envied me, and I've been judged by boys because of how I look. It was tough, but I thought it would be okay with Scott. I planned to change my appearance little by little for the man I loved. However, after getting engaged to Scott, I started feeling more uncomfortable. Before our engagement, Scott seemed kind, but recently, he started making comments that made me feel bad. The other day, we went to a bridal fair to choose a wedding venue because Scott suggested it. The place he took me to was very fancy. It was a beautiful guest house perfect for a big wedding with over 200 guests. Seeing that, I felt confused. I don't have many friends from school, and I didn't want to stand out. I had hoped for a small ceremony at a smaller venue. I wanted to go home right away, but Scott seemed to be having a good time, so I didn't bring it up. I stayed and went along with it. After it was over, we stopped by a cafe, and Scott was in a great mood. "The wedding venue we saw earlier was nice, wasn't it? I'd like something even more extravagant," he said while drinking coffee. I felt anxious and decided to tell Scott what I wanted. I was thinking a small wedding with just the two of us might be nice. I don't like standing out too much. I thought kind Scott would understand. However, the reality was very different. Scott looked at me and laughed in a mean way. "A plain girl like you wouldn't fit in a place like that. There's probably no dress that suits your thick glasses." I was shocked by Scott's comment. "Isn't a wedding about both families?" I asked. "My family is wealthy, and not having a big wedding would be embarrassing," he continued. I was speechless. The Scott who had always been kind was now looking down on me like he was a different person. I was deeply hurt by his attitude. To my confusion, Scott made an even worse comment. "You should just keep quiet and do as I say," he added. Scott looked at me with a serious face and said, "A plain woman like you should be grateful to get married at all." His harsh words shocked me, and I even felt scared. Then, suddenly, Scott smiled and said, "I'll decide everything for you, so you just need to do what I say, okay?" I didn't know how to respond, so I just smiled awkwardly. Maybe getting engaged to Scott was a mistake, but it was too late to pretend it never happened. I had already told our parents and my company about our engagement. Despite everything, I still loved Scott. I hoped he would go back to being the kind person he was before we got engaged. So, even though I was confused by Scott's changes, I felt I had no choice but to continue with the engagement. Scott kept making comments that troubled me, and with each one, my heart felt more hurt. but I couldn't bring myself to hate him. Even when I thought about breaking up, I remembered the kind Scott I used to know. I still loved him, so despite my confusion, I stayed in the relationship. Then, one day, something happened that confused me even more. It was the day Scott and I finalized our wedding venue. After visiting several places, Scott chose the luxurious guest house we first visited. With pride, he said, "A lavish ceremony really suits me. It's unfortunate for you, though." Scott laughed, and it hurt me. We went to the guest house to sign the paperwork. On the way, I saw someone I didn't expect. "Oh, is that you, Scott?" It was a woman. Scott looked surprised and said, "Mom, what are you doing here?" He then introduced us. "Kelly, this is my mom, Olivia." "Mom, this is Kelly, my fiancée. I told you I was getting married, remember?" Olivia greeted me with a smile and said, "I'm Scott's mother. You seem like a serious woman. Where do you work? You must be working at a big company, right?" This was my first time meeting Scott's mother. I nervously told her about my company and that I do clerical work. Olivia made a puzzled face and said, "I've never heard of that company." Scott then joined our conversation and said, "Kelly's company is one of my clients. It's a small company with about 20 employees, so it's natural you haven't heard of it." After hearing Scott's explanation, Olivia's face turned grim. "I thought since you were Scott's fiancé, you'd be working at a more reputable company. Doesn't that mean your salary is low? Are you planning to make Scott suffer?" Olivia's words caught me off guard. I felt embarrassed and quickly said, "I'm sorry, my salary isn't very high at my current job." I had no choice but to apologize to Olivia. Olivia sighed heavily and said, "Can you at least not rely entirely on Scott? Our family is from a distinguished background. We don't need a woman with a questionable background." I didn't know how to respond to her harsh words. Olivia continued, "What about your parents? They work at reputable companies, right?" She glared at me with narrow eyes. My father is," I started to answer, but then I noticed something familiar in her bag and stopped talking. Seeing my confusion, Scott spoke up, "Come on, Mom, calm down. We're going to visit the house and make our marriage introductions soon, all right?" Olivia didn't look happy and glared at me with a sour expression. It was clear that my first impression on her was terrible. The path to marriage seemed difficult, and I sighed quietly. Then came the day of the marriage introduction. "Wow," I muttered as I stood in front of Scott's family home. It was far beyond anything I had imagined. Olivia had mentioned that their family was distinguished, so I expected them to be wealthy, but the reality was astonishing. The gate was automatic, there was an elevator inside, and there were even 10 luxury cars parked outside. They must be my future father-in-law's hobbies, I thought. Scott then said to me, "Dad is out for work today. It's just Mom, so make yourself comfortable," with a smile, but I felt even more nervous. Olivia had been so harsh to me last time, and I feared she would make more sarcastic remarks. Scott and I entered the living room where Olivia was waiting. "Hello, thank you for the other day," I greeted her politely. The next moment, Olivia said something unbelievable. "Welcome, my maid." Even though she knew I was here for a marriage introduction, this was the first thing she said. "What?" I let out a confused sound, thinking I must have heard wrong. I must have heard wrong. Olivia looked at me with a mean smile and said, "Oh, you aren't the maid? You've got such a poor-looking face." I couldn't believe she said something so awful. Then Olivia laughed, clearly enjoying herself, and said, "Scott told me it's okay to treat you like a maid." It seemed like Scott just wanted to marry someone who would do whatever he said. "Too bad for you, Scott," Olivia said with a smirk. "What do you mean?" I asked Scott, feeling pale and hoping it was a bad joke. I wanted to believe it wasn't true, but the fiancé I thought was on my side betrayed me in the worst way. Scott glanced at my face and burst out laughing. "You're right, she does have a poor-looking face. I'd love to see her parents. Maybe we could use them as our servants too," he said, laughing crudely. "Indeed," Olivia added, Having someone obedient for free is quite nice. But if they come to a rich house like ours, I wonder if Kelly's parents would faint from shock. Olivia and Scott kept looking down on me, and Olivia asked with a laugh, "By the way, what does your father do? He's not homeless, is he?" Scott burst into laughter and replied, "Mom, that's not a job. Given how Kelly is, he probably doesn't have a stable job." This is making my stomach hurt from laughing. Scott and Olivia continued to mock my parents, assuming my family was poorly educated and must have a plain appearance. I gritted my teeth in frustration, unable to bear their rude comments. They even looked down on my parents. I couldn't take it anymore and sent a message to my father while Olivia and Scott weren't looking. "I need you to come now," I wrote, and I also sent him the address of Scott's family home, which Scott had sent me for today's marriage introduction. I remembered it was my father's day off, so he must be relaxing at home. Luckily, my father replied within a minute, saying, "I'm on my way." Feeling relieved, I told Scott and Olivia, "I'm feeling a bit unwell, so I'm going to get some fresh air." I couldn't stand listening to Scott and his remarks any longer. I thought I would wait outside quietly until my father arrived. "Oh, is that so? Well then, Scott, why don't we continue our tea leisurely?" Olivia said, pleased to be alone with Scott. "Kelly, don't you run away," Scott added, his crude laughter echoing as I left. I left my seat and waited outside for my father to arrive. 10 minutes later, he showed up wearing dark sunglasses. "Kelly, what's wrong? Today was supposed to be your marriage introduction, right?" he asked, looking puzzled. Seeing my father, I felt relieved and started to cry, even though I tried hard to hold back the tears. "What's wrong, Kelly?" my father asked, now worried. I explained everything to him, how Scott's attitude changed after we got engaged, and how Olivia joined in looking down on me. "I can't forgive them for treating you like that," he said. My father listened quietly but was clearly angry. I told him more about what Olivia had said, and my father laughed. He took off his sunglasses and handed them to me. "We're going in now. I'll make sure they regret hurting you," he said firmly. With my father's support, I made up my mind. My love for Scott had faded, replaced by anger. "We'll make Scott and his mom regret it," I thought as I put on my father's sunglasses. Together, we entered Scott's family home. I stood in front of Scott and Olivia with my father by my side. "Sorry to keep you waiting," I said, standing tall. Olivia, who had initially laughed at me, became stunned when she saw the man beside me. I realized people freeze when they are too surprised. Olivia must have thought she could say something terrible again when I returned, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it this time. I planned to make her pay for her behavior. Olivia already recognized who my father was. "My father is the maid's father," I said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were stern. His handsome face made him look even more imposing. Olivia, who recognized my father, was shocked. "How could this be? Why is Richard here? Is this some kind of joke?" she asked, her cheeks turning red and her eyes sparkling like a young girl's. Scott stood there, clueless and stunned. My father didn't answer Olivia's questions, but kept staring at her and Scott. Olivia blushed under his gaze, which was quite embarrassing for a woman of her age. I looked at Olivia with a cold stare. Scott, now regaining his composure, asked in confusion, "Richard? Mom, is he a friend of yours?" Scott probably didn't know about my father. He's quite well known among Olivia's generation, but younger people might not recognize him unless they watch TV dramas. Olivia glared at Scott. "Scott, how rude of you. This man is a famous actor and my first love." Scott looked shocked and confused. Then Olivia turned to my father, smiling and speaking to him. "I'm a big fan of yours, Richard. See, look at this," she said, pulling out her purse to show my father a keychain that only fan club members can buy. "I've been a fan for over 22 years, she added, expressing her admiration. "Mom," Scott seemed appalled by Olivia's sudden change in behavior. Olivia continued talking to my father, clearly thrilled to see her favorite actor. However, my father's gaze on Olivia was stern. After remaining silent, my father finally spoke up. I understand that you're a fan of mine. However, did you try to treat my precious daughter Kelly as a maid? My father's words made Olivia, who had been full of energy, turn pale and freeze. She started trembling. Ignoring her, my father continued, "And you assumed I was homeless without even meeting me. That's quite rude of you." My father glared at Olivia, who started to panic. "No, I didn't know Kelly's father was you. Having you join the family is more than welcome, right, Scott?" Olivia said desperately, looking to Scott for support. "Yes, of course," Scott replied, clearly feeling pressured by Olivia. Olivia tried to justify herself to my father, saying, "If I had known, I would have behaved more politely. Please understand, my earlier comments were out of jealousy. I was afraid of losing my son." I was dumbfounded listening to Olivia. She had been looking down on me and my father, but now she was trying to change her tone just because she knew who my father was. She even said, "Kelly is a wonderful woman who resembles Richard." Watching their interaction, I thought, I can't let my father be troubled any further. This is my issue. I should be the one to speak up to Olivia. So I told her, "I'm breaking off the engagement with Scott. There's no way you'll become family with my dad." "What? Kelly, please reconsider. This is my chance to become family with Richard," Olivia said, looking almost tearful. Despite all her terrible behavior towards me, her tearful face couldn't be trusted. I looked at Olivia coldly, but she still thought she could convince me. Seeing me silent, she smiled and said, "You want to marry Scott, don't you? I won't oppose it anymore. It's okay, I'll do anything for you." Olivia was desperate to become part of my father's family, willing to do anything, which was a complete change from her earlier attitude. I felt contempt for Olivia's quick change of heart. Softly, I said, "No, thank you." "What? What did you say?" Olivia tilted her head, pretending not to hear me. This time, I shouted louder, "I absolutely do not want to become family with you." Olivia was shocked by my outburst. I confronted her. "You made rude remarks about my job and spoke terribly about my father. I can never forgive that." I made my stance clear. Olivia, realizing she couldn't convince me, turned to my father and said with a smile, "Kelly says this, but Richard, you want your daughter to be happy, right? Our family is wealthy, and she'll be happy with us. Some people think money brings happiness, but not me." My father, understanding my feelings, responded to Olivia, "Kelly values love over money. Besides, our family has money. I, being an actor, earn a decent amount." Olivia was at a loss for words. It wasn't surprising my father is a well-known actor who appears often in dramas and doesn't struggle with money. Given our family's wealth, there's no reason for me to marry just for money. Olivia fell silent, unable to come up with a good argument. Then my father continued, "You say you're a fan of mine, but I despise anyone who mistreats my precious daughter. Could you please not call yourself a fan anymore?" Saying this, my father glared at Olivia. She burst into tears and said, "If Richard hates me, I won't be able to live." Olivia sobbed uncontrollably. Scott, who had been silent until now, began to speak. "You've been quite bold, Kelly. You'll regret it if you break off our engagement. No one will want someone like you," he laughed. "Wait a minute, Scott." Olivia tried to stop him, worried about my father's reaction, but Scott continued, "I chose a plain woman like you, thinking you'd be obedient. I planned to cheat on you with prettier girls once we were married. Now my plan's ruined." Hearing Scott talk about such things made me realize I had made the right decision. I calmly realized that Scott never loved me. He just wanted a woman who would obey him. My love for Scott had faded a long time ago. While I was thinking this, Scott kept making selfish statements. My father gritted his teeth, looking like he might grab Scott at any moment. It seemed like my turn to fight back. Dad, wait, I said, stopping my father. I let out a smile while still wearing my sunglasses. What's up? Scott seemed a bit surprised by my calm smile. Is this still plain? I asked, taking off the sunglasses with a flourish. Scott froze, staring at my face. I had applied makeup after meeting my father and crying. Normally, I only wore foundation, but now I had on eyeshadow, mascara, and eyeliner. Just a bit of eye makeup had significantly changed my appearance. Is that really you, Kelly? Scott's face turned a bit red. He seemed mesmerized by my makeup-enhanced face. Yes, it's me. I've always downplayed my looks to avoid standing out, but I've decided to stop hiding myself, I said. Until now, I had tried to avoid attention because of my father's fame. But being insulted by Scott and Olivia made me realize it was okay to stand out a bit and show my true self. Scott, with a flushed face, said, "If you had been like this from the start, I would have been nice to you. We can still start over. Come on, let's get engaged again, and introduce me to some beautiful actresses through your father." Who would continue with the engagement now, especially with the nerve to ask for actress introductions? I made my stance clear to Scott. The engagement is over. I don't need someone like you anymore. I'll cancel the wedding venue too. What? Scott was stunned, but I wasn't going to let him off easily. Of course, you'll be bearing the cancellation fee for the wedding venue. That's only fair, I continued. Olivia exclaimed in confusion. Wait a minute, it's too much to bear the entire cost. Scott, looking perplexed, couldn't come up with a response. Then my father spoke up. Why not have Scott's father cover it? With all those luxury cars, it shouldn't be a problem, right? My father said this with a refreshing smile. I played my trump card. If you're not happy with this, we can take it to court. Remember, my father is a famous actor, and news about this could stir up his extreme fans who might retaliate. My father has many enthusiastic fans. A critic who once spoke poorly of my father faced severe harassment prank calls and letters with knives. It was so bad that it even made the news. Olivia, remembering that incident, turned pale. She quickly urged Scott, "Scott, you must cover all the cancellation fees. We don't know what might happen." Seeing Olivia's fear, Scott finally understood the seriousness of the situation. "What? Are you kidding?" Scott fell to his knees, looking defeated. "I don't need you in my life." "Dad, let's go home," I said, ignoring the dejected Scott and Olivia. I left with my father. The engagement with Scott was now completely over, and Scott had to pay the full cancellation fee for the wedding venue. It turns out Scott's father is the head of a company, and my father had once appeared in a commercial for that company. Because of this connection, my father informed Scott's father about what happened. Unaware of the situation, Scott's father was furious. He confronted Scott and Olivia harshly, demanding that Scott cover the full cost of the wedding cancellation. As a result, Scott was left with a huge financial burden. The consequences also affected Olivia. She faced divorce initiated by Scott's father. Their treatment of us was one issue, but it wasn't the only reason. Apparently, Olivia had a habit of wasting money, spending a lot on fan activities for my father. The money came from Scott's father, who had already lost patience with her. Moreover, my father revealed that Olivia had sent him inappropriate love letters, writing things like, "I want to divorce and marry you, Richard. My current husband is just a source of money." This enraged Scott's father. Despite Olivia's resistance, the divorce went through with the help of lawyers. I heard rumors that Olivia, saying this wasn't supposed to happen, was now living in tears. She had also been expelled from my father's fan club because of her troublesome behavior. It was probably inevitable. I can't imagine Olivia finding happiness after losing everything. She got what she deserved. Astonishingly, 8 months later, Scott was arrested. He couldn't forget me after I took off my sunglasses that day. Scott started showing up frequently in front of my house. Even after I quit my job, he called me often, begging me to reconsider our engagement, crying on the phone, saying, "I need you, no one else will do." He was only fixated on my looks. Scott cried and clung to his phone, but he was probably only interested in my appearance. The difference between my look before and after makeup was significant. I don't need a man who only cares about looks. I politely refused and then blocked his calls. However, Scott's actions became more intense. I went to the police several times, and sometimes I was even threatened with danger. After a lot of thought, I finally filed a report with the police, and my father agreed with my decision. Eventually, Scott was arrested for trying to break into our house. After his arrest, it seems Scott was fired from his job. Now, all that's left for Scott is a large amount of debt. He probably won't be able to live a decent life anymore. It's the consequence of looking down on people so much. Since then, I've been working as my father's manager. The job is much more challenging than my previous clerical work. I manage my father's schedule, accompany him on site visits, greet people, and negotiate salaries. Before, I only commuted between the company and home, talked to a few people in the office, and mostly worked on the computer. Now, meeting people and talking has become a big part of my job. It's a huge change from before, but I find it incredibly enjoyable. Being a manager is a glamorous job, but it's not just about that. I support my father behind the scenes so he can focus on his acting career. The work hours are irregular, and you need to be adaptable. Most importantly, it's a job that lets me closely support my father. I want to repay him for all the worry I've caused. It's a job I've just started, and there will surely be many challenges, but I want to keep moving forward and do my best alongside my beloved father. Today, I continue to do my best. Hi there, my name's Nancy. I'm 21 years old, and 3 years ago, I married the love of my life. Everything seemed to be going great. Even though my husband is Spanish, we didn't have many problems except for the language barrier. To show my love, I decided to learn Spanish so I could talk better with him and his family. That's how much I loved him. I was doing this in secret. Johnson, my husband, and Mary, my mother-in-law, didn't know I was learning Spanish. Not only was I learning, but I got pretty good at it. I knew that if I was in Spain, I could manage. You might be wondering, if I'm so good at Spanish, why doesn't my husband know? Well, I was a bit shy. It can be scary trying to speak a new language, especially with people you're close to. But I decided it was time to stop hiding. I needed to speak Spanish with both my husband and my mother-in-law. After all, I learned it to make communication easier, right? Well, it's a good thing I didn't start speaking Spanish right away because I found out some surprising information one day that led to a series of unfortunate events. Hello, Mama. How are you, my son? Thank you for inviting me over this lovely Sunday afternoon. It was our pleasure, Mom. Hello, Mama. Hello, my daughter. How are you? Thank you so much for including me. Oh, hush. You know you're always wanted and welcome here. I brought some croissants and how do you Americans say, bagels? Yes, bagels and croissants for our afternoon tea. Oh, how lovely. Thank you so much. Come and sit, Mama. The food will be ready soon. Did she prepare the food? No, I did most of the prep. Don't worry. Oh, thank God. Hearing this, I wondered what she meant by that, but I was too shy to ask. How strange. Mary always seemed to like my cooking. Why was she saying those things? At the time, I thought maybe she just wanted to eat food made by her son that day. Maybe she wanted to taste food that reminded her of old times. Then I heard her say, "I hate her cooking. Why did you invite me here instead of taking me to a cafe so we could avoid her?" Mom, we agreed to speak in English so Nancy doesn't feel left out, remember? Oh, forgive me, my sweet daughter. I was just saying that the food looks so good. I was surprised to learn that my son made it. Oh, I wish it was you who made it. I love your cooking. At this point, I was confused. How could she say such awful things in Spanish and then lie to my face in English? I thought I might have misunderstood, but I had a plan to confirm what I heard. Oh, please don't worry. You should never feel ashamed to speak your native tongue. Go right ahead. I'll be fine. I wanted to catch what she was saying, so I planned to use the Google Translate app to record her and make sure I understood correctly. We all sat at the table, getting ready to eat, and what came next shocked me to the core. I want us to discuss our plan. The time is approaching. It's literally tomorrow. Johnson, you have to be serious. The app, along with my Spanish knowledge, confirmed there was some plan going on, but I didn't know what it was. Mama, not now. I said I would handle it. What are you going to tell her? Nancy, darling, please pass me the sugar. She doesn't know anything about the plan. I was just going to tell her that I would be out of town. Out of town? What for? What was going on? I was so confused. I was constantly looking down at my phone to see what the app was translating. I think they assumed I wasn't paying attention and became less careful with their words, which was good for me as I was learning their true feelings. She's not too smart. Look at her glued to her phone. We can talk about this now. Okay, Mama. Fine. What do you want to discuss? The plane is leaving at 2 p.m. Are you sure you'll be able to escape her then? Escape me? What for? I was so confused, but I stayed calm and pretended not to understand so I could plan my next move. Yes, Mama. I know. I will do what needs to be done. I know how important this is. It is extremely important. If your great-uncle doesn't see us tomorrow, he will give the house to someone else, like your cousin or your aunt. We can't let that happen. No one needs to know about this house. Oh, Mama, you're so funny. Don't worry. I just said that in English so she doesn't suspect what we're talking about. Who, Nancy? Yes. Oh, sorry, my love. I was just asking who made this delicious tea. It's splendid. Oh, that would be your talented son. I'm afraid I'm not as good as he is when it comes to these things. Oh, darling, your food is amazing. Amazingly terrible. Mom, she will catch you. She can't catch me. She's too stupid to understand us. I don't know, Mom. She obviously understands some basics, I think. Let's see. Nancy, how much Spanish do you know? At this moment, I knew I had to lie. I said I didn't know much, so they would keep exposing themselves, and I could keep learning their true colors. How I managed to stay calm while being insulted still amazes me. I guess I knew it was more important to handle this situation than to get emotional right then. I said, oh, I'm still very bad at Spanish. I only know the typical things like buen dia and como te llamas, but that's it. Oh, that simply won't do, darling. You should learn some more Spanish. Yes, ma'am, I will. Well, it's a good thing for Johnson and me, as we can gossip about you. I'm just, how do you say, kidding with you, mi cariño. We would never do that to you. Are we doing it right now? Yes, which makes this extra funny. They laughed, and I kept using Google Translate. I also checked other apps, websites, and forums to see if what they were saying was correct. I got about 99% confirmation from these sources. Now that I knew they clearly didn't like me and were making fun of me, I had to gather as much information as possible, even though their insults were hurting me. The next thing I heard shattered my resolve. As I was saying, this house is extremely important. No one can know about this house, okay? We need to be the only ones knowing because we could make a lot of money. We can't lose this opportunity. I'm so glad we're doing this. It's a good thing we didn't tell my wife because I don't want to share the spoils. Me neither. Everything needs to go smoothly. Your great-uncle Jack said that whoever contacts him first about this issue will inherit the mansion. So we need to go there physically before anyone else and start working on remodeling and improving the house. I can't wait to have a house in New Hampshire. This is where I'll go to escape my wife and my life here in Mississippi. Sometimes I can't stand her. You know you're still young, way too young to be married to someone like her. Come and live with me in New Hampshire. You can enjoy your youth with women and booze, have a good time, and then settle down when you're ready. Let's leave this place. Honestly, Mama, I think you're right. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I felt tears welling up. Excuse me, what's wrong? Is everything okay? Yes, I just need to get something from the kitchen. I couldn't listen to them anymore. I needed to collect myself and not make a scene. How could they say those awful things with me right there in the room? Did they have no shame? I was so upset. I began pacing up and down the kitchen, and then I saw my mother-in-law's purse sitting on the counter. I decided to look inside and take her phone. Luckily, it was unlocked. I opened her WhatsApp and sent Uncle Jack's number to my phone. I quickly deleted the text from her phone, so it looked like nothing happened. It felt like I was acting on instinct. I didn't know why I did it, but I was glad because I was now planning to get back at them. I returned to the dining room where the conversation was still going on. They seemed to be talking about the same thing. So tomorrow we leave for the vacation. I think it's well deserved because of all the hard work we've been doing. I second that. We deserve this break. Is everything okay? Yes, honey, we were just talking about the weather and how it's a perfect day to go relax somewhere. Would you like us to do that? Maybe not today, Scene. Oh, okay. When would you like to go then? Maybe tomorrow? Both Mary and Johnson froze slightly. I was looking for their reaction and noticed it. I don't think tomorrow would be possible. I asked Scene to help me with some things around the house. Oh, what things? Why is she asking so many questions? Just to move things around. I can help too, if you like. That won't be necessary. See how nosy she is being. I don't like it one bit. Do you see why you have to leave this place? Don't worry, Mama. I've got this handled. I still managed to keep a smile despite knowing what they were saying. I was looking forward to my plan for revenge. I continued recording their conversations until the very end to make sure I had all the details. As I mentioned before, my Spanish was getting pretty good, but I still wanted to make sure I got the right information. That night, I snuck away from the bedroom and went to the office to do some more investigating. I replayed the audio, and sure enough, my doubts about my accuracy were gone. From this whole ordeal, I learned that there was a vacation planned for tomorrow to go and claim a house from Great Uncle Jack, and that these people apparently hated me and were planning to leave me. A bonus piece of information I got was when I went to the kitchen to pace. I had left my phone, which was still recording, in the room with my husband and mother-in-law, and I managed to pick up some more useful information. The conversation consisted of Mary asking Johnson about his computer password because she wanted to change some aspects of their flight. I managed to get the password and flight details. I must have hit the jackpot. I logged into John's computer, and sure enough, there were flight details on the website where he booked the tickets. Feeling very sneaky and devious, I may or may not have changed their flight details, pushing their flight to the day after tomorrow. This was just phase 1 of my plans. There was a lot more to come. Since I had sent myself Great Uncle Jack's number, I was ready to do what I needed to do. Hello, Uncle Jack, it's Nancy. Oh, hello, darling. How are you doing? Is everything okay? Well, no, not really. I went into great detail explaining what had happened that day. I even sent him the audio recording as proof because, without it, I doubt he would have believed me. We cut the call so he could listen to the voice recordings, and we talked again after he finished listening. Wow, I don't even know what to say. How could Mary and Johnson do this? They were such sweet and innocent people when they were younger. How could they do this to you, to me? I know, it's a lot to take in. It was shocking to me too. You have indeed improved your Spanish. Well done. Thanks, Jack. But now that we know this, what do we do? Well, obviously they're not going to get the house. That's a fact. After hearing all of this, there is no way that I would never give such a valuable and honorable gift to people who plan to ruin it with their evilness and foolishness. Okay, I get it. It's your house, and you have every right to do what you want with it. Yes, I do. From now on, I will ignore their calls. Let's see how they feel about that. Thanks again for bringing this to my attention. You are a good and kind-hearted person, Nancy. Please don't let the ugliness of this world change you. Thank you for your time and willingness to listen. Hearing what you heard today couldn't have been easy. I applaud you for your strength. Please take care, Uncle Jack. You too, love. Good night. With that, I knew I had secured the downfall of both Mary and Johnson. Now that everything was set, I just had to wait for the right moment to make my move. When I got back to the bedroom, Johnson was still fast asleep. It hurt to know that my husband, whom I love dearly, would treat me this way. I didn't know he felt all those things, and maybe if we had talked, we could have found a solution. But he chose to be deceitful. I took his phone and turned off his alarm. Without it, he would surely oversleep, and that's exactly what happened. I packed my things and went to a hotel for the night. I couldn't stay in the house with someone like that. The next day, absolute chaos ensued. I'm sure John woke up to 100 missed calls from his mother and was frantically packing because he hadn't packed the day before. I suspect this because I got a call from him at 1 p.m. Where the hell are you? Why didn't my alarm go off, and why aren't you here? Oh, I decided to take a little vacation day for myself. Oh, that's nice. A little heads up would have been appreciated, though. Yeah, likewise, scene. What? What do you mean? Anyways, that doesn't matter. I'm running late for my flight. I mean my meeting with Mom. Why are you in such a hurry? I'm sure she wouldn't mind you being a little bit late. You don't understand. Anyway, it's fine. I won't be home tonight and tomorrow night. I've got a lot I need to do. See you later. Before I could even respond, he hung up. I'm pretty sure he was so overwhelmed that he didn't even check the proper details of his ticket, which I had changed to the next day. Through the Find My iPhone app, I saw that he made his way to the airport. Imagine waking up, rushing out of the house with only minutes to spare to make it to your flight, just to find out that it had been canceled. I'm sure he was moving like a madman up and down that airport. I could almost see him frantically checking his phone, realizing the flight details were wrong. Suddenly, I received a call from Mary. What have you done? What do you mean, Mary? Drop the act. I know you tampered with our flight. If by tampered you mean changed the date, then yes, that's exactly what I did. Why would you do that? I was trying to help you guys out. Didn't you say you wanted John's help with moving some stuff around? I noticed that you had the flight booked for today, the same day John was supposed to help you, so I decided to change some things. You're welcome. Johnson, come and talk to your wife before I reach through the phone and strangle her. Johnson grabbed the phone. Listen here, Nancy. I don't know what you've done, but whatever it is, stop it right now. Uncle Jack still isn't answering his phone. Try again, Mary said, her voice shaking with frustration. He isn't answering his phone because he doesn't want to speak with you too, I replied calmly. You can understand us? Johnson asked, sounding shocked. Every last word. But how? I've been practicing, I said, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. I've been learning Spanish so I could communicate better with you and your mom. But now I see it also helped me uncover your plans. Johnson's face went pale. You knew all along. Yes, I heard everything. Your plans to leave me, to claim the house without me knowing. I heard it all. Johnson and Mary were silent. I could hear their heavy breathing over the phone, the shock and fear evident in their silence. So what now? Johnson finally asked. Now, you deal with the consequences of your actions, I said. I already spoke to Uncle Jack. He knows everything. You won't be getting that house. But Nancy, you don't understand, Johnson pleaded. We had no choice. We needed that house. You had a choice, I said firmly. You could have been honest with me. Instead, you chose to deceive me. Now you have to live with the consequences. There was another long silence. Then Mary spoke, her voice trembling. Nancy, we're sorry. We didn't mean for it to go this far. It's too late for apologies, I replied. You made your bed, now you have to lie in it. I hung up the phone and took a deep breath. It was done. I had exposed their plans and ensured they wouldn't get the house. I felt a sense of relief, but also a deep sadness. The man I loved, the family I thought I was a part of, had betrayed me, but I knew I had to move on. I packed my things and checked out of the hotel. I decided to stay with a friend for a while until I figured out my next steps. As I walked out of the hotel, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, relief, but most of all, a sense of empowerment. I had stood up for myself and taken control of the situation. And now, I was ready to start a new chapter in my life, free from deceit and betrayal. I told you, Mama. I told you she might hear us. So that means yesterday you heard everything? Yep, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to divorce your good-for-nothing son and leave you two to deal with each other. How blessed day. Oh, and next time you want to talk about someone with them right there in the room, make sure they don't understand what you're saying. Have a nice life. I hung up before they could respond. I was done with their nonsense. Later that day, I got a call from Uncle Jack. Hello, dear. How are you? I'm a bit upset. I just had an ugly fight with John and Mary, and now I'm getting a divorce from him. I'm so sorry that things turned out this way, Nancy. It's part of life, I guess. How are things on your end? Well, I finally spoke to them and gave them a piece of my mind. They are not happy. What did you say to them? I told John that he's an idiot for treating you the way he did, and told Mary that she's evil for roping her son into her schemes. I also told them that I have given you the house. You what? Yes, dear, the mansion is yours. Even if you get a divorce from John, it's all yours, and you can share it with whomever you please. I don't know what to say, Jack. It's too much. I wanted this house to go to someone kind and compassionate, but also tough and strong when needed. That's exactly who you are. A house is the least I could do after all the stress and turmoil those two put you through. The house is yours. Take it. After that call, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I had managed to distance myself from two toxic people, and on top of that, I had been gifted a multi-million-dollar mansion. It felt surreal, like something out of a movie. But it was real, and it was happening to me. The next few days were a whirlwind. I moved my belongings into the mansion and started to make it my own. Every room, every corner, became a testament to my resilience and strength. I decorated the house with a sense of newfound freedom and pride. I was no longer bound by the deceit and betrayal of Johnson and Mary. This house, this beautiful mansion, was a symbol of my victory over their treachery. As expected, Mary and Johnson were furious. They sent me constant threats, trying to intimidate me into giving up the house. But I stood my ground. Each time they sent a threat, I responded with a picture of a different part of the house, reminding them that it was mine, not theirs. I wanted them to see what they had lost, to feel the sting of their own actions. Revenge never felt so sweet. One evening, as I was sitting in the grand living room, surrounded by the opulence of the mansion, I reflected on everything that had happened. I thought about how much I had loved Johnson, how I had tried to learn Spanish to communicate better with him and his family. I remembered the hurtful things they had said about me, their plans to leave me out of their lives. It had been a painful journey, but I had come out stronger on the other side. I received another call from Uncle Jack. Nancy, I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. I'm doing well, Jack. Thank you for everything. The house is beautiful. I'm glad you like it. You deserve it after everything you've been through. I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. You know, Nancy, I've been thinking, maybe you should consider staying in Spain for a while. You could use a change of scenery, and it might help you heal. That's a good idea, Jack. I think I will. Thank you for the suggestion. As I hung up the phone, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The future was uncertain, but I knew I had the strength to face whatever came my way. I had overcome betrayal and heartbreak, and I had emerged victorious. This mansion was not just a house, it was a symbol of my resilience, my strength, and my ability to overcome any obstacle. In the end, I realized that the best revenge was living well. I had a beautiful home, a supportive family in Uncle Jack, and a bright future ahead of me. Mary and Johnson could stew in their own bitterness and regret, but I was moving forward with my life, and that, I knew, was the greatest revenge of all. My name is Kelly, and right now I'm getting yelled at by my mother-in-law over the phone. Why on earth is the house gone? What were you thinking doing something like this? My mother-in-law complained without letting me explain. She doesn't seem to realize that she's the one at fault. I let out a sigh, which must have made her angrier because her voice got even louder. You better explain to me exactly how you turned that house into an empty lot. Well, let me start from the beginning. I decided to give my mother-in-law a full account of what led to this. The story takes us back to when I was a college student. My grandfather, who lived a long life, passed away, and our family had a dispute over his inheritance. It wasn't about money, though. The issue was what to do with Grandpa's old house. It would cost quite a bit to dispose of it, and everyone in the family already owned a house or an apartment. Managing another property, my grandpa's house, seemed too much to ask. That's when the buck passing began. Even though the house was old, it was still livable, and the land it sat on belonged to my grandpa. Inheriting it could be a good asset, especially for someone wanting to live alone. That's when I volunteered to take over the house. With an enthusiastic, "Sure, go ahead" from everyone, the old house and land became mine. So, while I was still a university student, I became the owner of a house and land. There were inheritance taxes, of course, but that was a separate matter. I temporarily borrowed money from my parents and worked part-time jobs to pay them back. By the time I graduated from university, the house and land were truly mine. I started working at a publishing company, and then a friend introduced me to a great guy. We started dating, and that's how I met my husband, Keith. He agreed to live with me in my grandfather's house. The house was old and not very convenient, but Keith never complained, and I appreciated him for that. I enjoyed our newlywed life. However, our blissful married life soon faced an unexpected turn. One day, my mother-in-law visited us and said, "We want to move out of our current apartment. Can we stay here until we find a new place?" Her family included herself, my father-in-law, and my sister-in-law. In other words, 3 people would be moving into her home. I was lost for words. Well, I stuttered. My mother-in-law responded with a sly grin. "The contract in our apartment is up soon, and we'd have to break it if we renewed. You'll help us save money, right?" I protested, "But this is so sudden." She continued, "I'll help with the housework. Sounds good, right?" Just like that, I was forced into living with my husband's family. Luckily, our house was spacious, and we had rooms to spare, so there would be no problem accommodating everyone. As someone who kept working after marriage, having my mother-in-law's help with housework seemed like a good thing. But I couldn't shake off the fear that living together might strain our currently pleasant relationship. Despite some anxiety, our cohabitation began. However, living together quickly proved troublesome. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were always goofing around and never helped around the house. Even worse, my father-in-law would come home late at night and demand that I prepare meals. At first, I put up with it, but my patience soon wore thin. "Please help me with the housework, mother-in-law. That's what you promised me first," I pleaded. "Did I?" She feigned innocence. Then my sister-in-law chimed in, "How dare you talk back to your husband's parents? You're so insolent for a daughter-in-law." But this is my house, I argued. So what if it's your house? You are our daughter-in-law, aren't you? Well, yes, but whatever is our daughter-in-law's is ours, right? I was too shocked to reply. In the end, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law continued their ways. They partied all the time and never helped around the house. I tried talking to my father-in-law about it, but he said, "You are our daughter-in-law. You should respect us. Nothing good comes from a daughter-in-law defying her in-laws. It'll end in divorce, and you'll be thrown out." My father-in-law seemed to be under some misunderstanding. If I were a stay-at-home wife without a job, I might worry about life after divorce. But I have a job and own assets like a house and land. Being told to divorce doesn't bother me at all. Besides, whether to divorce or not is something my husband and I should decide, not my in-laws. I was annoyed, but there was no point in arguing. I realized they wouldn't listen anyway. "I'll have them leave," I muttered to myself. But it wasn't that easy. When I brought up the subject of moving, both my father-in-law and mother-in-law would change the topic. They'd find reasons to keep delaying leaving. Thinking it was strange, I consulted my husband. "Do you really think they intend to move out?" "Now that you mention it, they do seem to be dragging their feet. I don't like the thought of them staying here indefinitely. They might have a reason." We should look into this." "Yeah, let's ask our private detective friend." So we decided to get some help. We wanted my mother-in-law and sister-in-law out, even if we had to pay for their move. That was my first wish. About a month later, one day when I was about to scold my mother-in-law for still not doing anything, she came out with this first. "Kelly, I want to apologize to you for always causing you trouble." Apologize. Why don't we take a family trip together? That was her proposal. After moving in, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law had done nothing and left everything to me. Now they seemed to regret their behavior and thought they should apologize. It seemed they discussed and concluded that a bonding trip would be the best way to make up for it. Needless to say, I thought if they felt that way, they should leave. But it was hard to complain to someone who was being humble. I decided to take a calm approach. Maybe we both have misunderstandings. It might be nice to go on a trip. Do you agree? My mother-in-law was so happy. Then my sister-in-law added excitedly, "We were thinking of an overseas trip. Where would you like to go?" "Anywhere is fine," I replied. "We'll decide then," she said. Suddenly, my sister-in-law interrupted herself and turned to me with an apologetic look. "See, we don't have any money right now." "Huh? You don't have money?" They had no money but proposed a trip. Really, they were exasperating. Saying they had no money could only mean one thing. As I was thinking this, my sister-in-law said, "Could you lend us some money?" Just as I was about to refuse, my mother-in-law said something unexpected. "Your dad is retiring soon, so he will get a retirement bonus. We can pay with that. You just have to front the money for now." By dad, she meant my father-in-law. Given his age, his retirement was indeed due. Moreover, the retirement bonus wasn't just a guess. It was a guaranteed sum of money that would surely come. Although I was slightly suspicious, I thought the money would definitely come in. The matter we were discussing on our side needed a bit more time, so it might be better to accept my mother-in-law's invitation and avoid causing tension between us. So I accepted the idea of the trip. After that, I was informed by my mother-in-law and sister-in-law that they had decided on London as our destination. The flight departs at noon from Lax International Airport. "Understood," I said. "It seems like the trip is going to cost quite a bit. But as we said before, can you front the money for us?" they asked. "Yes, I'll cover it," I agreed. Even though it was just lending the money, it was not a small sum. But at this point, I couldn't say no. Moreover, it seemed like they had already made the reservation, so I might as well enjoy it. I gave the requested amount to my mother-in-law. On the day of the trip, The meeting time was 5 hours before our flight. My husband Keith, who had been working the previous day, was staying at a hotel near the airport. Therefore, he was not with me on the bus heading to the airport. I decided to try calling Keith. At that moment, a call came from Keith's phone before I could call him. "Hello, Keith, are you awake?" I said, thinking it was my husband, but it was my mother-in-law's voice. I heard over the phone, "Kelly, where are you now?" "Mother-in-law, I'm on the bus heading to the airport." "That's unfortunate. We're about to get on the plane now." What? I was confused. Then my mother-in-law, with a sarcastic voice, dropped this bombshell. "Actually, we're leaving at 9. Sorry. You lied to me. It's a family trip, so we're going to enjoy it just as a family." "What about my ticket?" "Canceling right on the day of departure is fine. You were never included." My mother-in-law laughed loudly. Apparently, this was all part of her plan. As I clutched my phone in frustration, my sister-in-law's voice came on. "Are you upset? You're upset, aren't you? Do you enjoy this kind of thing? It's fun, by now." At that moment, the line went dead with a strange noise, and the call was cut off. I immediately called back my husband. I could hear the ringing, but it wouldn't connect. Ultimately, I arrived at the airport just before the flight's departure time. When I asked the airport staff, they said the plane had already entered the runway. There was nothing I could do but watch the plane take off. It would take a little over 12 hours for the plane. I waved goodbye to arrive at its destination, and my mother-in-law and her group would be back in about 15 days. I had plenty of time. "Play games with me, and I'll show you who's the better player." I went straight home. I immediately contacted a demolition company and asked them to tear down my house. I also contacted a moving company to haul out all the belongings in the house. But it wasn't just my stuff in the house. There were things belonging to my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and sister-in-law. Because this was so sudden, I didn't have a new home ready. After some consideration, I decided to use one of the warehouses that was part of my grandfather's inheritance. This warehouse was something my grandfather had used for his business, and nobody was using it now. However, there was a large parking lot in front of the warehouse, which was currently being used by the people in the neighborhood. I had everything moved to that warehouse. After that, I notified my parents that I was going to rebuild the house. My parents asked why, but I told them I'd explain the details later and hung up the phone. I finally had a chance to take a breather when it was late at night. I had just fallen asleep when I noticed my phone ringing. It was an unknown number, and it was early morning, still dim outside. I hesitated but decided to answer the phone. "Hello, is this Kelly?" The person on the phone was my husband, Keith. "What do you want now?" "Sorry, has your fever gone down now?" What? What are you talking about?" "I heard you had a high fever," Keith said. As I listened to his story, I realized my mother-in-law's careful maneuvers. Apparently, Keith had been told the correct meeting time. Because the meeting time was early in the morning, he had purposely stayed at a hotel near the airport. When he arrived at the meeting time, he quickly noticed I wasn't there. When he asked my mother-in-law about it, she told him I had gone to the hospital with a high fever. Keith was worried about me, but thought he couldn't call the hospital. My mother-in-law pretended to be passing on a message from me, telling Keith to enjoy the trip. So he thought he would enjoy the trip for my sake, and departed without contacting me. But my mother-in-law knew Keith would call me eventually. She called me on Keith's phone just before departure. After they had riled me up, my sister-in-law pretended to accidentally break Keith's phone. Keith believed her and forgave her on the spot. But during the flight, he realized something was strange and called me as soon as he arrived at the hotel. "You've got to be kidding me. Even my sister was in on it? What the hell are they doing? Keith, are you mad at what they did?" "Of course, I was looking forward to going on the trip with you, Kelly." It seemed Keith had nothing to do with it. If that was the case, I decided to get my husband's cooperation. I discussed the ongoing plan with Keith. So that's how things are moving, I said. I see. That sounds interesting, he responded. I've prepped everything. Keith, you just need to act like you're enjoying the trip. Understood. I have one favor to ask, though. Could you bring back some souvenirs for me and also some for my colleagues? This was my only concern. Whenever one goes on a trip, it's customary to bring back souvenirs for colleagues at my workplace. In fact, I had even been asked to buy some branded items. I could say I was left behind, but that would be too embarrassing. It was a dilemma for me, but with Keith on my side, it changed the situation. Now everything was settled. I provided the list of souvenirs to Keith and focused on what I needed to do. After sunrise, I had a demolition team come over. After getting a quote, they immediately began tearing down the house. The work finished quickly, and the plot of land was cleared in no time. A few days later, my in-laws returned home. They started causing a commotion in front of the empty plot of land. Then they called me and started complaining nonstop. That's the whole story. Did you understand? You've got to be kidding, I said. My mother-in-law yelled again. Even though she was on the other side of the phone, I wasn't scared at all. I calmly replied, "It's pointless to say anything now. I've already demolished the house." "What happened to our belongings? Did you throw them away?" "No, I didn't throw them away. I'm keeping them." "You are nothing but a thief. I'm only keeping them. I'll return them if you pay." "Pay for what?" "For the trip and the moving costs. You did say you would at least pay for the trip, didn't you?" You should pay up soon." At that, my mother-in-law fell silent. It seemed she was at a loss for a reply. Then I heard my sister-in-law whispering in the background. Suddenly, my mother-in-law asked, "Before anything, I want to know if our belongings are safe. Where did you take them?" "They are in the warehouse my grandfather used to use. Anyway, I won't return them unless you pay. But your husband's retirement pension is coming, isn't it?" Yes, but, Then please pay me back. I'll return your belongings once you do." With that, I hung up. Still, my mother-in-law kept calling incessantly. Finally annoyed, I blocked all of her calls. Feeling refreshed, my husband Keith arrived at the weekly mansion where I was staying. "I'm back, Kelly." "Welcome back. Did you bring any souvenirs?" "Of course I did." "Thank you." I had considered returning to my parents' home, but I didn't want to worry them. So I informed my parents that we would be living in a weekly mansion for a while as we rebuilt our house. Then I rented the weekly mansion and moved there. I had been staying in touch with Keith regularly and had informed him about the move, so after his return, he came directly to me. My in-laws must have found it strange that he was acting separately. I was nervous about getting found out, but I'm glad things worked out this way. By the way, Kelly, if you get money from Mom, do you plan to forgive her? If she promises not to interfere in our lives in the future, I plan to return her belongings and forgive her. I'm just wondering if she'll pay up without a fuss. Don't worry, the warehouse is locked, and she can't take anything out without paying me back. There's no way to get into the locked warehouse. If they think it's possible, they'll give up and pay. I was confident, but I couldn't expect a reasonable response from my in-laws who lack common courtesy. I was reminded of this early the next morning when my phone rang in the dim morning hours. At this hour, I looked at my phone with sleepy eyes. It was another unknown number. When I answered, the person on the other side said, "I'm sorry for calling so early. I'm from the police." "Police?" I instantly woke up. I sat upright and listened carefully. There had been a disturbance at my grandfather's warehouse. It seems a local resident who uses the warehouse parking lot reported it. When we arrived, we found an intruder causing a ruckus in the warehouse and apprehended them. "I see, so you've caught the culprit." "But the intruder says they're a family member of the warehouse owner. They asked us to contact the owner." "Wait, my family. I had a bad feeling. When Keith and I rushed to the scene, several police cars were parked there. and in one of them were my in-laws. "Kelly, help us," my mother-in-law called out. My suspicions were confirmed. The intruders were my in-laws. "Are these individuals indeed your family?" a police officer asked. "They are technically my family," I replied. Keith and I apologized profusely to the police officer and the local people who had heard the commotion. After we apologized, we heard my in-laws' side of the story with the police officer present. They claimed they didn't have enough money to cover the moving and travel expenses I had asked for. Apparently, they had spent my father-in-law's retirement funds on traveling and repaying their own debts. That was challenging enough, but then my sister-in-law chimed in, "I've got a blind date tomorrow. Where are my clothes?" After some squabbles, they decided to take just what they needed from the warehouse. That's why the three of them broke into it. But once we got inside, we found photos of them partying with men mixed in with their belongings. This was a result of the investigation I had commissioned. When Keith and I asked a private detective to investigate my in-laws, it turned out that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law had been goofing around with men. These men worked in the nightlife industry, and my in-laws had poured quite a lot of money into them. They had even taken on debts, some of which they repaid using my father-in-law's retirement funds. On the other hand, my father-in-law was having an affair with a younger woman from his workplace. Despite the nice ring to his retirement, the truth was that he had been fired for his affair. I received these reports and photos just before my in-laws left for the trip. When they returned, I planned to use this as leverage to kick them out. But with things turning out this way, I had moved the photos to the warehouse along with my stuff. So they broke into the warehouse, found the photos, and started fighting over each other's misbehavior. "Seems like they brought this on themselves," I murmured. My mother-in-law shouted at me angrily, "What were you planning by taking these photos?" "Like I care," I retorted. My father-in-law yelled, "What have you done? This could ruin our family." "Well, that's your fault, isn't it?" "What? How dare you, as a daughter-in-law? Enough. If you have complaints, I'll sue you for trespassing." They'd all be arrested if it came to that. Realizing this, the three of them promptly quieted down. However, it was clear that none of them had the means to pay me back, so I proposed another option to them. "Would you rather work at a cannery to pay me back or get arrested for trespassing?" Predictably, they chose the former. I managed to get them jobs at a friend's cannery. They're working there every day now, earning the money they owe me. Meanwhile, I rebuilt a house on the land where my grandfather's house once stood. It's a brand new house that still retains traces of my grandfather's house. Keith and I are starting our married life anew in this convenient new home. My name is Margaret, and I am a 41-year-old janitor. I've been working for a housekeeping company that cleans corporate offices since I was 22, and I am a single woman about to celebrate 21 years of service. I took this job because I needed to look after my mom, who was very sick. We were a small family, just my mom, my brother, and me, and my mom was raising us on her own. When she got seriously ill, I had to leave vocational school and make time to take her to doctor appointments and help her out. I chose this job because it gave me the flexibility to take care of my mom. Now, I'm really happy I ended up here. My boss and coworkers are supportive and always treat me kindly, calling me Margaret, sweetie. I also have a few people working under me, and they are wonderful too. I used to think there couldn't be a better place to work. My mother died when I was 23, and my brother was 18, right as fall turned to winter. Losing her hit me hard, and I started taking more time off work. It was just as our company was getting ready for the busiest time of year with our year-end deep cleaning. Despite the bad timing, my colleagues told me, "It's okay, we'll wait for you to feel better." I was grateful for their kindness, but all I wanted was to be alone. I felt like following my mom. But I had a younger brother who needed me. He had lost his mom before even becoming an adult, and out of care for him, I forced myself to keep going. At that time, he was still in college. I looked after my brother, paid for his school textbooks as he moved through the grades, and drove him home when his classes ended late. When he got a job, I bought him a suit as a celebration gift. Even though I didn't earn much, I worked hard and thought of myself as standing in for our mom. After our mom died, my brother started asking me, "Why don't you quit being a janitor? And why don't you get a better job?" I think he was embarrassed by my low income and our modest social status. At that time, I wasn't mentally ready to change jobs, so hearing this from him was really tough. My coworkers were the ones who supported me kindly during this time. Later, my brother worked hard, got a job at a big corporation, a well-known company you often see in TV ads and online. His starting salary was almost double mine. He was as happy as a kid getting lots of money for New Year's. "Look at this, sis. I've surpassed you in just 2 months. Check out this payslip. Isn't it amazing?" He'd say, full of joy and bragging to others. "Sis, quit your janitor job and get a good one like mine," he'd tell me. "Hey, watch how you talk." "I love my current job," I'd reply. "Quit making excuses. Our salaries are no match," he'd argue. I wish he had chosen his words more carefully. Although I was glad his efforts had paid off, sitting in front of our mother's portrait, I reported, "My brother, your son, is all grown up now." But my younger brother, proud of his job and his company, was heading down a troubling path. He was good at his work and always talked about the praise he got from his boss. Despite being new to the company, he was chosen for a big project. As his sister, I was proud of him. However, I noticed him making condescending comments about his colleagues, and this only got worse over time. I was doing well at getting noticed, but my brother complained about his coworkers. He thought they were slow and feared they might hurt his reputation. He said this openly, as if he looked down on everyone, not just those at his job. I knew this attitude could really harm him eventually. I tried to warn him. "I think all the new hires are at the same level, you know. You're all just starting," I told him. But my brother snapped back, "Wow, sis, you're pretty talkative for a janitor with a low-level education," and he sneered at me. Frustrated, I answered, "Well, I've been working longer than you, so I know there isn't that much difference in people's abilities." He retorted, "Really? Do you have any college graduates at your cleaning company before you lecture me? Why don't you tell them they've wasted their lives?" After belittling me, he went out for drinks. I thought the real world would teach him a lesson soon. Despite my concerns, his arrogance only grew worse. It started with him feeling superior because his salary was higher than mine, and then he began to see himself as more gifted than others, which changed how he acted. He didn't hold back his critical comments about me. At first, I thought he was just excited about his job, so I let it slide. But when gentle warnings didn't work, I seriously scolded him, yet nothing changed. I started to doubt myself as a sister, wondering if I hadn't handled things well with him. Years passed, and I kept working as a janitor. My brother did well and climbed the corporate ladder, but his dismissive attitude toward others only got worse. Then he moved in with his girlfriend, and they got married. His wife also seemed very arrogant, which stressed me out. She was much younger than him, and it felt like she was from a different generation. The first time I met her, when my brother introduced us, she asked, "So you really are a janitor?" I replied, "Yes, I find it a fulfilling and enjoyable job." She said, "Really? Isn't it dirty?" I couldn't believe it when she said, "It must smell bad." My brother joined in and said, "Right, it's unimaginable, isn't it? It's unsanitary, and she's not attractive. She doesn't have any money either, but what can I do? I'm related to her. Sorry about that." I was shocked to hear this and don't remember much of what happened afterwards. After she left, I yelled at my brother, "You were out of line. What do you mean? I am related to her, so it can't be helped? And what's up with her too? Don't you dare judge people by their jobs or income." My brother, surprised by my sudden outburst, stammered but managed to snap back. Shut up. You're a vocational school dropout, and I'm a college graduate, so is she. We can't help but look down on you. You earn less and have a low-level job, so you're the one leading a loser life. With that, he stormed out of the house. I cried out of sadness and frustration. I had dropped out of vocational school because of our mother's illness, and my brother knew that. His words hurt me deeply. Yes, my income is modest, but I had still managed to pay for his education. I did my best to take over our late mother's role. I must have made a mistake in how I dealt with him. While crying, I looked at myself in the mirror. It bothered me that he called me ugly. I have a face similar to my brother's. I'm neither beautiful nor cute, but I don't think I'm ugly. Maybe I could take better care of myself. I wondered, if I paid more attention to my looks and changed myself, would he see me differently? But even if I dressed up, it's unlikely my brother's personality would change. Marrying a woman with similar attitudes probably only made his narcissism worse. While talking to my coworkers about this, I started to think that my relationship with my brother might be beyond repair. One day, I received a postcard from my brother and his wife saying they had moved. From the address, it looked like a standalone house. What's this all about? They're so reserved. If they had told me, I would have thrown a celebration and even helped them move. I had something I wanted to discuss with them too, so I decided to call them after a long time. Hello, I got your postcard. I could hear my brother's cheerful voice on the phone. It's amazing, right? A single-family house at this young age because I'm a fast tracker. It would be impossible if it weren't me, right? Yeah, amazing indeed, I replied. He was bragging as usual, but I found it nostalgic and let him talk as much as he wanted. Then I brought up my matter. I have something to talk to you about too. Just the other day, my company got contracted to clean your office building. We might bump into each other occasionally. Good for you. You wouldn't get to step foot in such a big building otherwise, right? He could have just ended there, but he added, there's one more thing. I got a boyfriend. What? Seriously? My brother sounded genuinely surprised. Yes, he's older and a wonderful man. After what you said, I started taking better care of my skin and such. He fell for me at first sight, I said jokingly. Well then, that's thanks to me, huh? Somehow, he managed to take credit for this as well. Well, I wouldn't say you haven't played a part in it. I wanted to introduce my boyfriend to you. He's been eager to meet you too, so would it be okay if we visited your place soon? We could also bring a housewarming gift, I mentioned casually. Ed, you're coming over. His previously cheerful tone suddenly darkened. I wondered what was going on. You do understand what your job is, don't you? Huh? Job, you mean my cleaning job? Listen, I've got a new house, which means it's clean, right? I don't want a filthy person like a janitor coming in my house. Excuse me? Was he saying that because janitors are considered dirty, he doesn't want one in his brand new house? I was confused and my mind went blank. Considering the dirty work you do, shouldn't you know how to refrain from visiting people's places? I'm sure your coworkers feel the same. You're out of line. That's rude. Apologize, I said, my blood starting to boil in anger. I could feel my fury ready to explode. Was it common courtesy to stay away because my job is dirty? Rude. Apologize. What the hell? I couldn't contain myself and yelled out loud. You've got some nerve to disrespect people like that. This is unacceptable. I could have handled it if it were just about me, but he was mocking my colleagues too. I couldn't let this slide. I could tell my harsh words shocked my brother over the phone. He's usually quick to criticize others, but when someone fights back, he stumbles over his words. Do you really think a person's worth is based on their job? That's just silly. Apologize to me right now. What? Why are you freaking out all of a sudden? He replied. I've had enough of you. How did you become so mean? Mom would be heartbroken. The real mean person is you. Your boyfriend must be worthless if he can't get a better job. If he had any sense, he wouldn't even talk to a cleaning lady. If you weren't my sister, I would never deal with someone dirty like you. If you weren't my brother, I would have left you behind a long time ago, I shot back. I was about to say that I'm cutting ties with you. Never contact me again. Oh, okay, got it. Goodbye then? We both said things to hurt each other. It was a petty argument, and neither of us was in the mood for a mature conversation. He tried to say something more, but I hung up on him. I was ready to cut ties with my brother. He's the only sibling I have, but I couldn't stand him anymore because he thinks that as a janitor, I don't deserve basic respect. Even though we're siblings, if our values are this different, it's better for us to stay apart from now on. I'll be fine. My brother is already an adult. This is our goodbye. I had come to terms with my feelings. Several months passed since I decided to sever ties with my brother. By some twist of fate, I was assigned to clean the office building where he worked. I think my boss was trying to be thoughtful, but I really didn't want to be there. However, my principle is to do my best at any job I'm given. Suppressing my feelings, I headed to my brother's company. The building was huge and spacious. With such a large space, I should be able to avoid running into my brother. Even if we did meet, he probably wouldn't recognize me. Feeling slightly relieved at that thought, I focused on cleaning, pushing my cart filled with cleaning supplies. It was that afternoon while I was mopping the floor. I noticed a group of about 5 men standing by the vending machine, sipping canned coffee and talking. One of them was saying, "I really am sorry for the inconvenience caused." Enough is enough. How many years have you been with us? Consult and report before things get to a point where the whole team has to clean up your mess, another man scolded. Yes, sir. It's happened 3 times just this quarter. I'm sorry, sir. It seemed like the guy who was apologizing had made some mistakes, and they all had to work together to fix them. Good job, guys, I thought to myself as I continued mopping, making sure not to look in their direction. While your peers have already become team leaders, some even managers, you need to step up your game. Another scolding came. I'm sorry, the man replied. Those are some harsh words. I wish they'd let him off the hook soon, I thought. I wanted to mop from there all the way down the hallway on the other side, but they were in the way. After scolding the man once again, they all returned to the office. As the group passed by me, I noticed a familiar face, my brother. The one who had messed up and was being scolded was my brother. I couldn't believe it. My brother also saw me, froze for a minute, then went completely pale. But without saying a word to me, he quickly followed his team and left. During the rest of my shift, my mind kept drifting back to my brother. He was supposed to be the fastest rising among his colleagues. But the brother I saw earlier looked nothing but a burden to the company, a straggler. He seemed like an employee who constantly made mistakes at work and was always apologizing. This intuition came from watching various human interactions in the corporate structure over the years as a janitor. His claim of being a competent individual was just his vanity. He must have been doing well at the beginning, at least. As I suspected, he might have become complacent and been overtaken by his colleagues, tripped up when he least expected it. I think it's bound to happen because of his personality. He looks down on others so easily, but I don't need to worry about him anymore. My brother and I are strangers now. We've cut ties. A few days after realizing the truth, I saw my brother again. I was cleaning the main lobby when he came down the elevator with someone. Darn, I left the bag with the samples upstairs, he said. I'll go get it. You can wait here, sir. No need. I'll go, you're useless anyway. But when you get promoted, you take care of me, okay? Not again, sir. I told you I'll go get it. The man, who seemed to be his junior, went back on the elevator to retrieve the forgotten item. It was ironic seeing how he treated me in the past, claiming to be competent. From a distance, I watched my brother shrink into a corner of the lobby, feeling pity for him as I cleaned the leaves of the lobby's decorative plants. My senior colleague, who was cleaning with me, quietly came over. "Hey, isn't that your brother?" "Uh-huh. Yes, it seems like he messed up. Let's just leave him be, okay?" My colleague, looking worriedly at my brother, went back to her cleaning duties. Bothered by our sympathetic looks, my brother sprang up and marched over to me. "Hey, janitor, what are you doing?" "I'm cleaning." "No, I mean, why are you here?" "I'm working." At my reply, my brother got visibly angry and raised his voice. "Don't you dare tell my wife that I look pathetic at work. You got that?" His frustrations seemed to be vented on me. The gazes of those around us focused on my loudly ranting brother. Out of concern for the onlookers, I whispered, "You're trying." "Shut up. Don't you, a lowly educated person, order me around. People are watching." "People are watching? Oh dear brother, can you please be quiet?" As I tried to calm him down by holding his hand, he recoiled. You're filthy. Don't touch me." He aggressively wiped the area I had touched and continued his insults. "You're threatening me, aren't you? You want money, right? How much do you want me to cough up?" "Threaten for money? What are you talking about?" I asked, dumbfounded. "I told you not to tell my wife." "Get it, you idiot," my brother snapped. "Oh, that's what this is about," I realized. "Constant mistakes at work or falling behind in your career, which one do you not want me to mention?" "Both, obviously," he replied, clearly scared I might reveal everything to his wife. "Wait, you're even lying to your own wife?" I asked. "Shut up, no garbage like you should speak," he retorted. Garbage? What on earth? He didn't care who was watching, he just kept insulting me. The stress from his job must be overwhelming, and he probably felt better by putting me down. "I'm not some punching bag for you to take your frustrations out on," I told him. Just then, a voice from behind intervened. "That's rude to the cleaning staff." "Shut up! Who are you?" my brother blurted out, finally noticing the tension around him. Unable to tolerate my brother's rudeness any longer, a well-dressed, gray-haired elderly man stepped forward. His high social status was evident. The man stood beside me and gently placed a hand on my back. "Dirty idiot, such intolerable slurs. Apologize to her right now." "Huh, but she's my sister." "We're just having a family squabble," my brother stammered, trying to downplay it. "I thought you said you cut ties with me," I interjected. "Shut up," he snapped back, showing his dual nature, humble towards the man but aggressive towards me. The gray-haired man then added, "If it's a family issue, it concerns me as well." "Huh? Pleased to meet you. I'm the gentleman dating your sister," he revealed. My brother was shocked. "I'm the executive vice president of the subsidiary that your company is seconding. I'm also a board member of your company. I'm sorry we didn't have a chance to introduce ourselves the other day." What? My brother was panicking, completely out of his depth. Feeling a bit awkward, I gave my boyfriend a side glance. "You didn't really have to step in just now," I muttered. "If not now, then when?" he replied with a warm smile, mimicking a popular TV personality. "Hey sis, is that really true?" my little brother asked, terrified. "Indeed. When we were contracted for cleaning this building, I accompanied our CEO. He, who was in charge of the contract, was interested in me," I explained. "No, that's a lie." "It's the truth. During the contract signing, I instantly fell for her who was explaining the details on behalf of a CEO who couldn't do it well, and I asked her out," my boyfriend said. A wave of gasps and murmurs echoed through the lobby. "How embarrassing." "I heard you said that no decent man would date a cleaning lady, and that he probably doesn't even have a stable job." "I didn't say that," my brother responded, but whether he said it or not, he needed to apologize for the insults he threw at me. My brother had no choice but to listen to the stern words from the man, turning pale. "You're Margaret's brother, aren't you? You shouldn't worry your sister too much." By then, my senior cleaner had joined us, and colleagues from other floors were gathering too. My brother was completely cornered. Looking defeated, he could barely stand as he bowed his head towards me. I'm sorry, he muttered, his voice weak and filled with despair, lacking any energy or emotion. Later, my brother was transferred to a remote branch of a subsidiary company. Let me make it clear, my boyfriend had nothing to do with my brother's transfer. My brother panicked when his coworkers heard his repeated insults towards me and feared his wife finding out about his problems at work. This led him to make several mistakes. It seems like he's no longer on the fast track to promotion. His wife came to me crying when she learned about his transfer. You're dating an executive from my husband's company, aren't you? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Please bring my husband back to the head office, she begged. Of course, I said no. Her plea fell on deaf ears. Unable to afford their mortgage with his reduced salary after the transfer, it looks like they'll have to sell their newly built home. I have no interest in what happens to my brother and his wife after this. And me? I got married to my boyfriend, and we're living happily in our newly built home. I'm still working as a cleaner, but now less out in the field, because I've become the president of the cleaning company I've always worked for. The president retired, and I was nominated as the successor. I had a lot of doubts about being president, but I decided to give it my all for the company I love. No matter what anyone says, I plan to continue doing the job I love, for the company I love, with my head held high. Hey everyone, I'm Amy, and I'm going to share my story with you. No hiding anything. It all started when my mom passed away when I was born. My big brother, Patrick, was only 5 years old, and our dad couldn't handle the loss. He turned to drinking, which really hurt him. By the time I was 3, he was gone too. I don't remember any of this, but Patrick told me everything. Thankfully, our grandma stepped in to take care of us. We had enough money because of what Dad left behind, but Grandma's love was what really mattered to us. Patrick went off to college while I was still in middle school. We were so proud of him. Meanwhile, Grandma and I stayed together. She was my support through all the tough times. When I finished high school, it felt like the right time to leave home, even though it was hard to leave Grandma behind. College was a whirlwind of classes and new friends. Then, after I graduated, Grandma passed away. By this point, loss was something we were familiar with. Losing her felt like losing a part of myself, but Patrick and I supported each other. Patrick moved to another city for his job, and I found myself alone in our childhood home. After college, I felt a bit lost, like many people in their 20s, unsure of what to do next. I decided to use my design degree and got a job at a small boutique. At 20, my life didn't have the excitement that others my age seemed to have. No wild parties, no serious relationships, just the routine of work and home, and I was okay with that. But everything changed when I met Henry on a rainy day. A blonde guy with ocean blue eyes came into our boutique, soaking wet and trying to dry off. "Hey, how can I help you?" I asked. "Well, first off, I'm sorry about this wet mess," he said. "Can I get a towel, please?" "Of course, I'll see if I have something in the back to help you dry off," I replied. "Thanks. Actually, I'm here to pick up something for my sister Julie. It's her birthday today. Do you think she likes patterns or something simple yet stunning?" "Definitely patterns. She loves to stand out," I said. "In that case, we have some gorgeous floral prints that I think she'll love," I suggested. It took us nearly 50 minutes to find the perfect dress for Henry's sister. We looked through racks of vibrant patterns and bold styles, sharing our thoughts and laughing along the way. I rang up the purchase at the register, and Henry leaned in a bit, his voice low and a bit nervous. "Hey, Amy, I was wondering if, maybe you'd like to grab a coffee with me sometime." "Oh sure, I'd love to," I replied. "Great, can I get your number so we can figure out a time?" "Of course, here you go," I said as I handed him my number. And that's how I met Henry, who almost became my husband. Going out for coffee with a stranger was probably the boldest thing I had ever done at that point, to be honest. But hey, Henry didn't turn out to be a serial killer, so that's a plus, right? After that first coffee, we started spending more time together. We got to know each other better, and I found out that we had a lot in common. Henry's life story was kind of like mine. He lost his mom when he was young, just like I did. His dad raised him and his sister, Julie, all by himself. Henry's dad was from Switzerland, and his mom was USA. They met, fell in love, and Henry's dad moved from Switzerland to the United States. Henry had a job in the corporate world and was doing well for himself, but what really impressed me was how kind-hearted he was. You could just tell from the way he acted and treated people. Our casual hangouts turned into something more serious. We would spend weekends together, sometimes at my place, just enjoying each other's company. Things were going pretty smoothly between us. Then 2 weekends, my brother Patrick was visiting, and Henry was also around. It felt like the right time, so I officially introduced Henry to Patrick as my boyfriend. Hey, Henry. Finally, I get to meet the guy who's got my sister head over heels. Nice to finally put a face to the name, Patrick. How's life treating you? Henry replied. Pretty good, man. Running my own little business keeps me busy. It feels like raising a baby sometimes, you know? I'd love to talk more about it, but it's good to know you're here keeping my baby sister company, Patrick said. Oh, come on, Patrick. I'm not a baby anymore. I'm 21, I said, rolling my eyes. All right. This house is really something. Thanks. Dad built it, but we didn't stay here much. We moved in with Grandma when we were kids. Amy filled you in? Patrick asked. Henry nodded, and we all laughed, feeling the warmth of family and the start of something new. I bet she did. Sorry about your loss, man. Thanks, no worries. So, Amy said you're working hard down at the office on the 25th floor? Yeah, just a regular desk job, nothing exciting. Hey, every job has its value. Let's raise a glass to that. Absolutely. Here's to hard work paying off. Cheers. Henry and Patrick got along really well, and seeing them bond made me really happy. Eventually, I asked Henry to move in with me. He was practically living with me already, so it just made sense. He officially moved out of his rented apartment and became my roommate. Henry was the sweetest guy. He did all sorts of little things to make our home feel cozy and special. For example, he would surprise me with breakfast in bed on lazy Sunday mornings, making my favorite pancakes with extra syrup, just the way I liked them. He also left little love notes around the house for me to find. Sometimes I'd come home from work and find a cute message tucked into my bag or stuck to the fridge. It always made me smile and feel so loved. It wasn't just the big gestures that made Henry special, it was the little things too. He would always hold my hand when we were out walking or give me a warm hug when I was feeling down. He was always there for me, through the good times and the bad, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. We had been together for 3 years. Time sure flies by. Then, the day came when I finally got to meet Julie face to face. She had flown in from Switzerland and was planning to stay here for a while. We had spoken on the phone before, but she didn't seem very friendly during those calls. But hey, phone conversations can be awkward. She wanted to meet Henry, so I made sure to be prepared. Henry assured me that Julie was much nicer in person and told me not to worry. When Julie arrived, I tried to stay calm and greeted her with a friendly smile. She started speaking to Henry in Romansh, and I must have looked completely lost. Henry noticed and said, Julie, remember Amy's here too. She doesn't speak any Romansh. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Amy. It's nice to finally meet you in person, Julie said, smiling. I was just telling Henry how it took me a long time to find your house. It's beautiful though. No problem at all, Julie. I'm sorry I couldn't understand you earlier. It's okay. So Henry, you and Amy, huh? This is the longest relationship my brother has ever been in. You must be really special. Well, what can I say? She really is. That night, with Julie and Henry chatting away in Romansh, I felt completely out of place. It was like I didn't belong. That's when I decided I needed to learn Romansh to fit in better with Henry's family. I secretly started taking lessons online whenever I could, even though running the boutique kept me pretty busy. Meanwhile, Henry had a big surprise planned. He was going to propose after we had been together for more than 3 years. He felt it was time. So he took me to the beach one day where he had also invited Julie, Patrick, and a few other close friends. He even asked Patrick for his blessing and promised to take care of me forever. It was a really special moment that made me so happy. After I said yes to the proposal, we jumped right into planning our wedding. We decided to get married in just 2 months. Some people might think it's a bit soon, but we both wanted a winter wedding, so we went for it. Planning the wedding was both exciting and overwhelming. From picking the perfect venue to figuring out the guest list and all the little details in between, there was a lot to think about. But with Henry's help, I finally did it. Learning Romansh was a bit tricky. I had tried a bit of Italian in high school, but Romansh felt like a whole new challenge. Still, I was starting to get the hang of it, even though I knew I had a long way to go. I kept my Romansh lessons a secret from everyone except Patrick. "So, my little sis is finally getting married, huh?" Patrick said. "Yep, she sure is," I replied. "I wish Mom and Dad were here to see this day. They would have been so proud of you and the choices you've made." "Yeah, I know they would have been, but I'm grateful you're still here, Patrick. I couldn't have done this without you." "Hey, Amy, remember when I used to beat you at basketball?" "Oh yeah, how could I forget?" I laughed. "Well, look at us now. You're winning in the game of love. Just a couple more weeks, huh? Oh, by the way, how's the Romansh coming along?" "Actually, not too bad," I said with a smile. "I haven't told Henry yet. I'm planning to surprise him with a speech in Romansh at the wedding." "Look at you, going all out for love," Patrick teased. "You know me," I replied with a grin. "But seriously, Henry's a great guy. We've had a few talks, and I'm confident he'll take good care of you." "Hey, why are you getting close to my husband behind my back?" I joked. All right, I'm hanging up now. Goodbye," Patrick laughed. Fast forward to 4 days before the wedding, and I was buried in chaos, doing last-minute checks to make sure everything was perfect. Henry was right there with me, helping out. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Henry said he'd get it and left for a moment. He came back with Julie. "Hey, Julie, I didn't expect to see you here," I said, surprised. "I'm here for Henry," Julie replied. "Why, honey, it's 4 days before the wedding. Our dad is flying in tonight, and you know the groom can't be with the bride the night before the wedding, right?" "Oh, right. I almost forgot about that," Henry said, a bit flustered. "I'll go pack my bag while you and Amy have some coffee." "Sure thing," Julie said, smiling. Henry ran upstairs while I made coffee for Julie and me. "So, Amy, I just wanted to say I'm sorry if I've seemed cold or distant. Honestly, I'm really happy you're joining our family now," Julie said. "Oh no, Julie, you haven't been cold. Don't worry about it," I replied. "Come on, don't be too polite. I know I can be a bit intense sometimes." "It's just that I'm really protective of my brother," Julie admitted. "I completely understand. My brother, Patrick, is the same way," I said, nodding. "Anyway, Dad is excited to see you both too. I'm so glad he can make it." After Julie and Henry left, I was alone in the house. It was still the afternoon, so I decided to take a nap. I headed to the couch to watch my favorite show and hopefully drift off to sleep. As I was getting comfortable, I noticed that Julie had left her glasses behind. I thought about texting her, but I remembered I needed to go near her apartment to check in with the florist, so I decided to drop off the glasses myself. After a 5-hour nap, I put on some joggers, grabbed my car keys, and headed straight to the florist. I checked on the beautiful flower decorations and admired the wonderful work the florist was doing. I made my way to Julie's apartment and rang the doorbell, but it didn't work, probably because it was broken. So I tried opening the door, and it swung open easily. To my surprise, Julie and Henry were not there. Instead, I heard voices speaking Romansh coming from the balcony. By now, I had become pretty good at understanding Romansh, so I listened in on their conversation. Their accents were strong, but I managed to understand most of what they were saying. Here's what I could make out from their conversation. Finally, we have her right where we want her. The fish is in the net. Calling her a fish? That's harsh, Julie. And using her while her brother is supposedly dying is just wrong. Well, it's not certain if her brother is really dying. And even if he is, do you think all that inheritance is too much for a simple girl like Amy? She has her dad's house, her grandma's house, and her brother's business. She's not capable of running a business with half a brain. That's where I come in. You know, I always wondered why you liked her. She's just a sad, lonely orphan with a boring life. But now I see your plan. We could do great things with all that money. And remember, divorce is always an option. I had doubts about the situation, but when her brother called me to talk about his kidney issues, I became more convinced than ever. You're quite the cunning one, aren't you? Listen, Julie, this money could be a game changer for us. Our dead-end corporate jobs won't get us anywhere, but this inheritance could be our ticket to something big. I promise I'll support you if things work out the way I hope. Well, I'm not complaining anymore, Julie replied. Suddenly, Julie turned and walked into the room, her face changing to one of surprise when she saw me. Oh my goodness, what are you doing here, Amy? We didn't expect to see you. Henry, come inside. Amy's here to see you, she said, trying to sound cheerful. Henry walked in and shared a quick look with Julie before starting his act. Amy, how long have you been here? He asked, trying to sound casual. I just got here, but I really need to go. I just came to drop off your glasses, Julie, I said, feeling my heart racing. I handed Julie her glasses, but she could feel my hand shaking. She looked at me with concern. Hey, why do you look so pale? Is everything okay? You seem like you're about to cry, she asked. Well, the florist messed up one of the arrangements, and I think I should go back and make sure it's being fixed properly, I said, trying to find an excuse. Oh, do you want me to come with you? She offered. No, your dad's coming tonight. You should stay home and help your sister Julie with dinner or something. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, bye. Drive safe, Henry said. Leaving Julie's apartment building, my eyes were filled with tears. I didn't try to hide them as I walked past curious strangers on the street. All I could think about was what I had just overheard. The words kept echoing in my mind. How could Henry, the man I loved, talk about me in such a cruel way? And my brother's health, what about that? It was too much to handle. When I reached my car, the tears flowed freely. Sitting in the driver's seat, I buried my face in my hands, unable to stop crying. Even though I had a strong urge to confront Henry and Julie right then and there, I knew there was something I needed to do first. See Patrick. I was really worried about him, so I drove back home, hoping to find him there. Patrick was supposed to stay with me for the wedding, and I waited anxiously for him. After what felt like forever, Patrick finally arrived. When he saw me on the couch, crying with swollen eyes, he rushed over, clearly concerned. Hey there, Amy, what's going on? You seem upset. Did something happen, or is it just cold feet before your big day? He asked, trying to lighten the mood. Patrick, enough with the jokes. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Are you sick? I asked, my voice trembling. Amy, don't worry about me. Your wedding is just around the corner, and you should be focusing on that, Patrick replied, trying to brush it off. Patrick, please, I need to know if you're okay, I insisted. Well, yeah, I've been dealing with some health issues lately, he finally admitted. What kind of health issues, Patrick? I asked, my heart sinking. It's my kidney. The doctors say it's in bad shape, he said, looking down. Oh no, Patrick. Is there anything they can do to fix it? I asked, feeling a wave of fear wash over me. He looked at me and said, They're saying I might need a kidney transplant in the future, but don't worry, they're working on it. But the chances of finding a donor aren't great, right? This is serious, Patrick, I said, feeling the weight of the situation. I know, Amy. It's a tough situation, but I believe things will work out somehow, Patrick said with a hopeful tone. Why didn't you tell me about this before, Patrick? I'm your sister. I should know. I want to help you, I insisted. No, I can't ask that of you. This is why I kept it from you. I didn't want to worry you, especially with your wedding coming up. Besides, I was hoping things would get better on their own. Who told you about this anyway? Was it Henry? But you should have told me. We're supposed to be there for each other through everything, I said, feeling hurt. I overheard Henry talking to his sister. I wanted to talk to Henry about it to make sure he would take care of you if anything happened to me. So I did. He promised to keep it away from you, though. I'm sorry you found out like that, Amy. I should have been the one to tell you. Can we please pretend we never had this conversation and deal with it after your wedding? He asked. Sure, I'll put it on hold until then, I agreed, trying to stay calm. How about we order some takeout? I have some other things to take care of. Sure, Chinese, Patrick suggested. Yeah, that sounds good. And then you better rest up and get some sleep, I said, trying to lighten the mood. Are you excited? I'm sure it's going to be a one-of-a-kind wedding. After Patrick and I finished dinner, he went off to sleep. It had been an incredibly tough day for me, with so much to process. I decided not to tell Patrick about Henry and Julie's deceitful scheme. I didn't want to burden him with worry. Instead, I resolved to handle the situation myself and teach Henry a lesson he wouldn't forget. Reflecting on everything, I realized that Henry had been using me all along. He enjoyed the benefits of free housing and meals without contributing his fair share. Sure, he'd occasionally give me small gifts, but it hardly balanced things out. I had become his safety net, making sure his life was comfortable without any financial worries. It was a bitter pill to swallow, especially considering the love I had for him. Hearing Henry talk about my brother's health like it was no big deal made me furious. How could he be so heartless? I knew then that I couldn't let him get away with it. I planned to stay calm until the wedding, then reveal who Henry really was. My plan was simple: show everyone his true nature and let them see what kind of person he really was. I wanted him to face the consequences of his actions and watch his plan fall apart right in front of him. He needed to learn that his actions had consequences, and I was determined to make sure he did. The big day finally arrived. Imagine wearing a wedding gown, putting on a fake smile, and pretending everything's fine when deep down you know you're about to walk down the aisle just to break up with your fiancé in front of everyone. It was tough trying to stay calm and pretend in front of all the guests while my bridesmaids buzzed with excitement. It was getting harder by the minute. I hadn't spoken to Henry all morning anyway. After finally getting myself together and putting on my wedding gown, my friends did my hair and makeup. I was all set. One of my bridesmaids brought out a bottle of champagne to celebrate, but I wasn't in the mood. There was still time before the bride and groom's first look, or should I say the last one. Patrick was going to walk me down the aisle, and I thought it would be best to tell him about my plan now. So I asked my bridesmaids to send Patrick in and give us some space. Hey, what's going on? You look a bit tense. Need someone to talk to? Patrick asked. Patrick, I've got something heavy on my mind. I need to tell you what's really going on, I said. Are you nervous about your big speech? Want to practice with me once? He asked, trying to help. No, Patrick. There's something more serious. The thing is, Henry isn't who he seems to be. The other day, I overheard him talking to his sister. I heard some things, I began. What do you mean? What things? Patrick asked, looking concerned. It wasn't a casual chat. They were scheming. Patrick, Henry's in it for the money, and he's interested in your business too, I explained. Are you sure about this? He asked, shocked. Absolutely. I wish I wasn't. That snake, I should have seen it sooner, I said, feeling angry. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. I didn't want to worry you, Patrick. But now that I know, I can't keep quiet. I'm going to confront him and give him a piece of my mind. How could he do this to you, to us? I said, determined to take action. I don't want to let him get away with this easily. You know what? I'm going out there to tell everyone his real intentions, his boss, his colleagues, his family, his friends. They're all out there. His life will be ruined. Are you sure about this, Amy? It's going to be messy, Patrick cautioned. I've never been more sure of anything, Patrick. He needs to face the consequences of his actions, I said firmly. Henry and I had our first look, but I didn't look too excited. I could see Patrick trying hard not to punch Henry right then and there, but it was time for the final showdown. The music started playing, and Patrick walked me down the aisle. Henry, with his fake tears, stood there. I stood next to him, looking at the audience. Everyone was smiling warmly. Before the priest could start, I whispered in Henry's ear to leave politely. Then I took a deep breath and began speaking. Hi, everybody. I want to thank you all for being here. I know you must be wondering what I'm up to, so I'll let the cat out of the bag. Henry came into my life like a breeze and soon made himself at home. I didn't mind it. Things moved fast for us, and I thought we would be together forever. But there's always a but, isn't there? And in this story, there are 4. Babe, what's going on? Henry asked, looking confused. Well, I've been learning Romansh secretly. Henry's from Switzerland, and I wanted to surprise him with a speech in Romansh today. But guess what? Learning Romansh helped me understand something I wasn't supposed to hear. Henry and his sister Julie have been talking behind my back. What is she saying? Henry muttered, looking nervous. I've heard everything, Henry. You've been calling me a dumb orphan, saying I don't see how you're using me for money. And not just that, you've been eyeing my family's inheritance that my late parents and grandma left for me, and even my brother's business. Can you just shut up? Don't you see people from work are here? My family and friends are here, Henry said, trying to keep calm. And that's why I needed to show your true colors so everyone can see who you really are. Hey everyone, I hate to ruin the vibes, but I came to speak up about Henry and tell you the truth. So yeah, the party's over, I said, looking around at the shocked faces. I needed a moment to gather my thoughts, so I quietly slipped away from the commotion. Henry and Julie's stunned expressions and their father's disappointed look were burned into my mind. Patrick stepped up, helping everyone to disperse and calm down. After shedding tears alone in my bridal suite for what felt like forever, a gentle knock interrupted my solitude. I hesitated before opening the door, expecting Patrick, but to my surprise, it was Henry. Do you realize what you've done? My dad's furious, and Julie is beyond angry, Henry said, clearly upset. And whose fault is that? I just told the truth, I replied. You could have talked to me privately first instead of accusing me in front of everyone. Now I don't even know if I'll have a job. My boss was already mad at me, and this might be the last straw. Where will I go? I don't even have my own place, Henry pleaded. That's the whole point, Henry. I can't believe I didn't see your true intentions sooner, I said, feeling a mix of anger and disappointment. Well, congratulations, Amy. You've ruined everything. I hope you and your stupid brother suffer all your lives, he spat. Get out, Henry. I don't want to see your face anymore, I said firmly. The rest of the wedding day is a blur in my memory. After finishing another bottle of wine and waiting for Patrick to see off the guests and clean up my mess, he finally drove me home. The first week after the wedding was filled with tears and support from friends and family. But it wasn't just my love life that was in turmoil. Patrick's health was also at risk. After gathering some strength, Patrick suggested I take time off work to be with him. I agreed and went to his home. There, we met with his doctors to see if I could be a kidney donor for him. Unfortunately, I wasn't a match. Despite the heartbreak, I knew I had to be strong, especially for Patrick. He had always been there for me, and now it was my turn to support him through this tough time. It wasn't easy, but I did my best to stay composed and hopeful for the challenges ahead. And now, here we are today, 6 years later. You might be wondering how things turned out for me and Patrick. Well, let me start with Patrick. Over these 5 years, there were many ups and downs. His health got worse, and there were times when I had to drop everything to be with him. But it was all worth it when I received a call from him this morning. "Hey, Patrick, is everything all right? How are you feeling?" I asked. "Amy, I'm ecstatic. You won't believe what just happened. I got a call from my doctors, and there's a donor. They've scheduled me for surgery next week," he said, his voice full of joy. "Wow, after 5 years, you've been so strong through it all. I'll be right there with you next week." "This news makes me the happiest person alive," I replied, overwhelmed with relief. I'm really glad that my brother is finally going to be okay. As for me, I decided to really focus on my career. I moved up from my job at the boutique and started styling clothes for TV commercials and media. Things have been going pretty smoothly. In terms of my love life, I've started seeing someone new. It's only been a few months, but I have a good feeling about this one. As for Henry, he's kind of disappeared from my life. The last time I heard from him was about 3 years ago when he was having a tough time. He would call me up drunk, blaming me for his problems. But I've moved on from all of that. I'm in a much better place now, both mentally and emotionally. I'd like to share a piece of advice with anyone reading this. Always try to keep good intentions in your heart. What goes around comes around, whether it's good or bad.